at me, acting like I was part of your property. Remembering all the times you fought with me, I'm surprised it got things the way they were before. You wouldn't even recognize me anymore. Not that you knew me back then, but it all comes back to me in the end. You kept everything inside, and even though I tried, it all fell apart. What it meant to me will eventually be a memory of the time I tried so hard.
Vad spelar en roll med mig? Vad tråkig du är. Om du skulle ha ont i fingret efter en minut. Många års tränande. Det är helt enkelt. Alla spelar ju LoL likadant också. Man behöver trycka 10 gånger, man trycker 100 gånger.
Has a version of Tommy. You cannot function without it. I wouldn't have your job this week. You wouldn't have my job anyway. You're about business. Affects everything in a town like this. Come inside. Get your dirty hair before you go to grandchildren. Replace the heat. You're still that man. Now go and make a live. Listen, that's what's not enough. You know how every aspect works. It's such a mystery to me why our marriage didn't work out. No, I don't like that. Bet your ass. Oil and gas industry makes $3 billion a day in pure profit. Price will be getting bigger. But before any of that money is made, you gotta secure the land, then manage the people. That's my job. First part's pretty simple. It's the second part that can get you killed. Itself that you are evil and I am evil. We're providing them with one thing they interact with every day. Getting oil out of the ground's the most dangerous job in the world. We don't do it because we like it. We do it because we run out of options. Everybody's whole family works for Patch.
Dies won't last.
Jag det
See,
så
beer
långt.
was some trouble. I quit drinking. I'll stick with beer. Welcome to the oil business. Tänk till exempel att ni har fått in möss i huset. En ultraljudsfälla med extra frequency megabooster hjälper lite. If hjälper mycket. Välkommen till If-försäkringen.
Snabbgratis hemleverans och oändlig underhållning på Amazon.se med Amazon Prime för 600 kronor i månaden.
Put those on now.
Khakis and dockside.
White people, they be coming from downtown driving their Lexus and whatnot, right? But they're afraid to stop. They be taking our money to the fucking pull lots on 18. I even kid they ain't afraid of. You know, little white boy on crutches and shit. They look like a reader at Walmart, you feel me? Yo, look, put that shit on, son. And if you see a cracker buying crack, your ass better jump. You hear me?
I can tell you up. Welcome to 14th and Main. I'll be your server. What will you be having? The fuck you giving me? What? Man gave me 20. That's a quarter gram. You gave up a 10. That's 1.5.
Jag har spelat 6 minuter, jag har redan dödat dem 3 gånger. Han lär inte vara glad nu alltså. Vänta. Så jävla nog.
There's no way he's gonna do it. What are you worried about? If I was about to get out the next couple of days, I would do it either. Just tell him everything. Here he comes. Hey. Good, man. It's good, man. My man, Julio. Something good. So,
You saying you got a problem?
there's a dude breaking rules. He beat up and raped my 12-year-old little cousin. Trust me when I tell you, I would do the shit myself. It wasn't for the fact that he was a kid. Börsen i juli och augusti ska du få reda på vinster för 152 miljoner på Postkodlotteriet.se.
You only really have one shot to get it right to tell a story. This is not necessarily my story per se, it's the story of all the people that were done Trace Task Force and Jenkins. And those guys kind of, they just terrorized.
Announcing a shocking corruption scandal in Baltimore. 7 police officers indicted on federal charges. We've heard similar storylines before on the big screen and on primetime television. Allegations of extortion, falsifying police reports.
Big time, she's a sergeant who ran a multi-million-dollar drug enterprise.
So our purpose is to tell the story and to educate the commission about what was really going on. Not with just Wayne Jenkins and the Gun Trace Task Force, but what had been going on with plainclothes officers here in Baltimore City.
The police corruption scandal rocks Baltimore City. Now there's a push to look deeper into what went wrong.
Did those in power turn a blind eye to corruption on the Gun Trace Task Force?
The state now looking to put together a team of legal experts to make recommendations and gather facts about just how far the corruption goes.
How could the system have failed this badly for this long? And what are we asking this commission to do?
What's the ideal outcome of this? Let the word get out that I hope the victims are eventually compensated. That we will have real changes in the systemic problems and issues that plague the criminal justice system in Baltimore City. And that hopefully Baltimore City will be a model of the competition system for control. But I think that our response today will be the signs are there. We just need pictures.
Good morning. I want to thank the committee, the commission to restore trust in policing for inviting me to speak this morning. I have been an attorney in the criminal justice system for over 20 years, and for the past 17 years, it's a private profession. It was in 2003 that I first witnessed the office of violent policing. Over the next 15 years, I kept hearing the same stories. They lied, they stole, they even planted evidence, including guns and drugs. I witnessed a law enforcement agency and a criminal justice system which despite numerous warnings and red flags refused to hold officers accountable. Right now, I'll be speaking on my personal experiences with the members of the Gun Trace Task Force, specifically Wayne Jenkins and the criminal justice system.
I've been babes with Wayne Jenkins who've been battling each other in courtrooms of Baltimore for years. But in 2016, Wayne Jenkins arrested Maurice Stevenson, broke into his house and robbed him, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and a couple of kilos of cocaine. I'm a baby with that days.
We have Mr. Stevenson. Mr. Stevenson was my client. This was an important case to me to symbolize problems within the criminal justice system and why we had issues with Wayne Jenkins.
On June 2nd, 2016, Maurice Stevenson was sitting in the one time in the house and started smoking with his band. When the number of the car is speeding up slightly, right in front of him. Immediately, sure, like, jumps out, opens the door of the car.
If anything, causing you to take official action?
On this day, I observed an individual walking towards a minivan carrying a book bag.
And who were you with?
I was with Detective Taylor, Detective Hendricks, and Detective Maurice Ward.
He was in the middle of a drug deal. The The police pull the individuals out of the vehicle, and Wayne Jenkins pokes his head in.
I look down between his feet inside the book bag, and you see stacks of currency.
They presented this as if it was a random stop. These guys are sitting there, had no reason to be stopped, don't have any idea what's going on.
Yeah.
Chickens,
Yeah.
comes to when they find 2 kilos of coke in the back of the van.
Based on what I saw, there was a
Han har 06 och han får döpa.
It's all about to find out. There's no reason to that because I believe he had more than me.
What did that think, Mr. Into the life of regardless this?
He advised me that he'll bring the cocaine, a large amount of currency and firearms inside that club.
So Jenkins says, look, I'm going to call a guy to go sit on his house, make sure no one gets anything out of it, and then we'll go over there. Jenkins goes out and makes a call. What he actually calls his friend Donnie Steph. Steph was his burglary friend and his drug dealing friend. So he goes, Steph, get up at the Heathfield house. Before my crew get over there, I got him.
He said he's got a monster. He said he's looking for someone. People down in front of the other. Really something serious. He said, "Now you listen. $1 million in cotton safe in the bag. There's $500,000 inside the safe. And there's 10 kilos in the closet, 6 in the front. Don't kick any bottom door. Walk in the basement where it's at. Go ahead and take it all." So I jump in my truck and I head down there. When I come around through the alley up there, gave me the address. Someone like, whoops, that's not someone there.
Steph sees someone, he heard out that he's scared out and jump out of the back window. They can't get out of the house. He thinks someone's already in there. He's scared to go in. So he sits a block away from the knock and watches the chickens and his crew blow up.
I'm trying to figure it all out. And he comes around and he's the key to the front door. So as I'm watching the backwards and here, I'm like, key, now why don't you come back key and kick the door? And just could feel like, what is he up to?
They go into the house. Jenkins immediately grab 2 kilos of cocaine. And since he's going to go back out and get in car bar, they might say there he wants to get in.
Come back to that door 3 minutes later, I just see how he opened his vest. I sent him across the door. I watched him get straight to the trunk of the car, throw it back, then he calls me from the street.
But what he actually does, he jumps in his car, goes up instantly, throws on the kilo, and says, "Would you $75,000 by the end of the week and go on vacation?" So Tony gets split. Jenkins goes back in. They break into the safe. Jenkins steals $100,000 out of the safe. They lock the safe back up. Tells Taylor to pull out his cell phone and start filming it. They're gonna bust the safe open again. Hey, son! Hey, come downstairs real quick. They might be open. You can see like Ward has the one pool, Hendricks has the other pool, and oh shit, the same spot.
Stop right while I'm shit. Don't bust the same as what's going on.
They had found this safe in the basement, broken it open, stole a bunch of drugs, and got some things, and then sealed back up, and then shot this video trying to recreate the moment of opening the safe for the first time. They did this little cute acting job trying to cover this up, and it's just so blatant.
He's stealing drugs from everybody else. Stealing from every drug unit. He's stealing from all the units, drug units that go into the out on the streets, and all the units that bring the drugs. He's a fucking sociopath. He's a psychopath. He's a gangster. You know what I mean? And that guy's not going to get cut loose.
When I became a defense attorney, it was June 22nd, 2002. I was a prosecutor, first in the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office in the Homicide Division. I didn't have any thoughts or illusions about what it would be. I just thought I was going to jump to the other side of the court. And I really enjoyed it because I got to really talk to the people and meet the people at different levels. I'd known about Wayne Jenkins, who was just this up-and-coming cop. He loved running around, being a police officer, going after the bad guys in his mind. He was very smart, he knew the law, and he knew how to manipulate the law.
We had a picture of Wayne Jenkins as someone who enjoys shot under the name Silverback. Mike's martial arts are faded into the background, and he brought some of that same aggression into his team. He was seen as like super cop. Like other cops, when they heard his name, they associated with like, oh, that guy gets the job done. He had a really good reputation. People admired him.
State your name and your assignment for the record.
Lieutenant Sergeant Wayne Jenkins, Los Angeles Discovery 383. I have 13 completed years. I started out as standard uniform patrol. From there, I was placed into the special
Va?
team.
Helt förvånad över honom.
Which is a volunteer center unit. I got promoted to sergeant in 2010, and I was placed in military staff for Baltimore City.
The house has two wings, west wing and east wing.
Is there anywhere around here we could
Ja.
Jenkins grew up in the Bowley's Quarters section of Middle River, which is a largely white community outside of Baltimore City proper. Jenkins was a small boy, was the youngest of five. His father was a Marine, and he really wanted to live up to that. I went to school with Marines, so I knew the critical field for 5 plus years. Didn't know that much about Marines. I mean, he was a super cop. Obviously worked in narcotics. Obviously was on TV and a pretty system show. Unbelievable boss in the city. So eventually, I get a phone call from him. This is how many to talk to. He asked me, I get a lot of problems, and can you give it up? He made up my gambling habits. Tremendous amounts of money. I've lost $2-3 million just in games. I got addicted to making money. I love the it's just who I am. So I agree with those things. I think it's honest. I didn't see what was in the news. I knew that God gave them every type of power than what I knew strictly attack. But they have access to some of those clandestine equipment that the government orders. They come in here to see the jurisdiction, people, border workers, and networks, which is what they are. We ain't capitalized using these informants. So he could get violent information on the streets and tell you what's going to this, what's going that. And me, it just opened up to get that kind of profile. So I knew the stakes were much bigger, but I was always a gambler.
I've been lost in 2010 songs. This was the tail of that movie, so I actually was the song. And the case that gave me was Case Jamal
There's no client list. There's no evidence of any blackmail. And there's nothing, no evidence that could predicate an investigation against anybody else. So, I'm announcing, and I have announced previously, but I'm going to release some new information here on stage with you today. It's time to take matters into our own hands. If we can't get transparency, then we need to be the change that we seek. We release images. These were images given to us by people in the government. People who don't trust the government. First, we got some images inside the Epstein Temple, never before seen. Very strange stuff, including something on the ceiling. We were trying to decipher what that was. Then we got images inside his library, including on his blackboard. I presume the FBI has all this. Strange things, power, deception, various words. A lot of people online trying to decipher or crack the code. We even got images inside his bedroom. Next to his bed table, there was a phone. On the phone, there was a series of names. Karina, Darren, Rich, Mike. I wonder if any of these people know what happened with all this child stuff that happened. But I think it's time for us to just hear directly from FBI agents. What do you guys think? We're going to release the Deputy National Intelligence Officer of the FBI, whose name is Rami Hassan, and he's talking about the Epstein case, and he says, I'm with the FBI, quote, it's a shit show. And this is, I'm just going to play a little clip, you can find the rest of it online. This is incredible. It's great to be back here. I don't have the bulletproof vest on. I'm just wearing the cross today, so hopefully that protects me. Because we tend to make a lot of enemies telling the truth, don't we? You can tell a man's virtues by his enemies and his vices by his friends. Thank you, Charlie Kirk, for having me. I got a lot to get through in 20 minutes. Thank you, everyone. This is incredible. One of the largest crowds I've ever seen. It's my 10th year at Turning Point. And I'm going to tell you about Jeffrey Epstein. So, some news last night as I was flying in. I saw the news regarding Dan Bongino resigning from the FBI. I saw the collision between Pam Bondi, Bongino, Cash Patel, stuff happening. I want to tell you a little story, take you behind the scenes, take you undercover, as we try to ascertain what's really going on. They always, why do they always tell the truth only in private? Why do they not say the quiet part publicly? Maybe they say it privately. Let me take you back to the month of April. This is April 28th, in a restaurant in Washington, D.C. This is the Attorney General of the United States talking to someone. They recorded it, sent it to us, talking about tens of thousands of videos.
We hope soon of being resident. Okay, so now you know what it is. Tons of hours. Yeah, and that's all the cool kids. So they have to go through every one.
Now we sent the Attorney General an email requesting comment. This is on May the 1st, a couple days after the 28th. We quoted what she had said, tens of thousands of videos of little kids, not something that's been reported publicly. After we sent the email, suddenly we saw this at the White House.
No, the FBI. Yeah, the FBI, they're reviewing, there are tens of thousands of videos of Epstein with children or child porn.
It seemed to mirror quite identically what we had captured just 9 days prior.
Yeah, and it's all the little kids.
Visste du att domare har den kortaste utbildningen av alla?
Epstein with children or
Det var tydligen en 3 timmars utbildning, va?
Something didn't seem to add up. It raised questions. The questions for me and my team was, this is not an easy story for us to publish, is
Antagligen så måste det vara någonting överliggande.
someone at a restaurant but not share it with the American people first. We also saw this on Joe Rogan. We're giving you everything we have.
And is there video from her?
Not of what you want,
But is there footage?
If there was footage of anyone doing anything else, we would have released it.
Yeah, and it's all the little kids.
Something doesn't seem to be adding up. Now, the Department of Justice issued this statement, which you probably all saw this week. There's no client list. There's no evidence of any blackmail. And there's no evidence that could predicate an investigation against anybody else. There's no story. There's no evidence. Now, listen, as a reporter, as a journalist, I can always tell you, there's always a story. It's just a question of to what degree. But to see the government tell us there's no story just doesn't seem to add up. And I'm a little biased on this issue because I myself, my team, as you know, have been raided by the FBI. Granted, it was the previous administration that did this. You're looking at a search warrant. The FBI taking battering rams to our doors a couple of years ago. expressly forbade this, forbid this. Even the liberal news media was against it at the time that it happened. But this administration did get around to releasing the affidavit of probable cause. The case is now closed. In my case, they closed the case and they had to release what's called an affidavit. That is the justification for the search warrant, the probable cause. Thankfully, hopefully, we'll now see who lied to the FBI. We'll see the transparency. We'll get the accountability. When they released this affidavit, this probable cause, they redacted every single word. You are looking at the justification for the raid of my newsroom. The Department of Justice right now wave their magic wand and show you what's behind these black marks. Does the public right to know outweigh whatever marginal concern the FBI has to protect their confidential informants? And by the way, it's a crime to lie to the FBI. This is over the Biden diary stuff. Did actually Biden lie to the FBI? If you or I lied to the FBI, we'd be in trouble. In fact, the only thing that wasn't redacted on this document was a footnote that said, based upon my training and experience, I have learned, this is an FBI document, page 11, that cell phones are capable of sending emails. This is just bizarre. Even the ACLU protested this. This is another liberal organization defending me in federal court. This is just bananas. What does it mean to be liberal anymore? What does it mean to be conservative anymore? I consider myself a constitutionalist. I believe in the First Amendment, I believe in the Fourth Amendment, and I believe in the public's right to know. So let's go back to this. Department of Justice statement this week. Much of the material is subject to sealing. We need to protect victims. Well, I'm all about protecting victims, and I don't believe we should publish any child pornography. But this did not expose any additional third parties to allegations of illegal wrongdoing. By show of hands, how many of you think that's a lie? 100% of you. I mean, this is crazy. So, I'm announcing, and I have announced previously, but I'm going to release some new information here on stage today. It's time to take matters into our own hands. If we can't get transparency, then we need to be the change that we seek. We need to have people come to us, sources on the inside, brave people, often speaking out of turn, and we release images. These are images given to us by people in the government, people who don't trust the government. First, we got some images inside the Epstein temple, never before seen. Very strange stuff, including something on the ceiling. We were trying to decipher what that was. Then we got images inside his library, including on his blackboard. I presume the FBI has all this. Strange things, power, deception, various words. A lot of people online trying to decipher or crack the code. We even got images inside his bedroom. Next to his bed table, there was a phone. On the phone, there was a series of names. Karina, Darren, Rich, Mike. I wonder if any of these people know what happened with all this child stuff that happened. We even were able to find out the names of these people by doing some research. His last girlfriend, his advisor, his lawyer. You're trying to tell me that none of these people had any knowledge about any illegal activity? But I think it's time for us to just hear directly from FBI agents. What do you guys think? You know, I have an idea. What if we launch something called FBI Leaks? How about that? How about we release audio and video? Whether they come to me on the record or off the record, they tell me.
Jeffrey Edward Epstein, have you ever been convicted of a crime? Yes.
Welcome, world, to the Late Show. I'm your host.
He's so blatantly.
Somehow, he didn't have...
Triangular graph, and the irregular organic graph includes
Dubbelt så live när du skaffar halvdag. Känn halvdag-effekten med billigt mobilabonnemang.
Du vet känslan att behöva diska om för att det inte blev rent. Inte jag.
Det är Yes Platinum! Jag bara slänger in den, även på det korta programmet.
Yes Platinums kapslar har en unik kombination av kraftfulla vätskor och förbättrat pulver.
Bara se till den här och ta ut den här! Diska om, inte om jag får bestämma.
Vår bästa rengöring mot tuffa matrester.
But your open experience.
I'll tell you what, Kurt Metzger called this from the beginning, and especially when he found out that Comey's daughter was going to be the judge. Did you know that? Yeah. Wasn't she the same judge on the Ghislaine Maxwell case? Yeah.
Oh yes, I did hear that.
Yeah. Bro, where's the videos? They were telling us that the video's going to come out, incredibly high-profile people doing horrendous things, evil things. People are going to go to jail. People are going to be shocked. Yeah. Where? Not.
Well, like, my thing about the Diddy thing is like, I don't really give a fuck. These people are they're of age. They're like 18 years old. And is it shitty what he's doing, trying to like use people and leverage them into do these weird sexual things and like sick shit, just the most sick shit you could possibly think of. But like the way I look at it is these people are using this Diddy stuff. All it does is like take away from the real child trafficking that's going on, like underage kids, right? There's like 300,000 something like missing kids. Like talking about Diddy and his oil parties with these 18-year-olds, like do I think it's good? No. I want to beat up their dad, but other than that, I don't really give a fuck if there's like 18 to 19-year-olds that are doing this, as long as they're not being like actually physically raped. But I mean, it seems like what's going on is just like this weird cultish thing that they slowly get creep closer and closer and closer to this thing. Like, oh, I'm here now. All these famous people are here. They're doing this. Like
elaborate parties, lots of money, everything you want, golden carrot at the end of the stick.
Right.
So the thing is, he's not even being charged for any of the things you just brought up. He's not being charged for blackmail.
Right.
Which is kind of crazy. It's like, what did they do? Why did they tell us that there was all these videos of all these high-profile people, and then silence, and then it never comes up once during the trial? There's none of that stuff in the trial. In the trial, it was his ex-girlfriend Cassie. They were talking about. So like, he's up for, there's 2 charges left, and it's like prostitution, something, it's like nothing stuff. It's like stuff that he's going to go to jail for like 5 years. These are all probably all. And he's already been in jail for, so what is time served yet? It's over a year, right?
Yeah. No, I think he's going to walk.
I think he's going to want to. And this is what Kurt Metzger called a long time ago. As soon as he saw that it was Comey's daughter, he was like, oh, he's going to walk. Trust me, he's going to walk. There's a bunch of high-profile people that are connected to this.
Yeah.
They're covering it all up. If he goes down, they go down. So he's not going to go down.
Right.
So that's the thing. Like, if he really did have like really wealthy, high-profile people at his parties, which we know he did, you know, city prosecutors abandoned multiple allegations against rapper Gates before trials end. Hey, he says,
wow.
Hey, remember I called it? This is Kurt Metzger on Twitter. Because James Comey's daughter's the prosecutor. Yep. Remember how well she swept up on the Ghislaine trail?
Yep.
Hey, who else called it?
Yep.
I can't be the only one. Yeah, he called it.
Yep.
He called it in the fucking. He called it in the fucking green room of the mothership. Right when he found out, he goes, he's gonna walk. I'm like, what are you talking about? You heard these charges?
Yeah.
He's going to go to jail.
Yeah.
That's what's right.
Yep. And then we I don't know what happened.
And you don't think they could fake the moon landing? Yeah. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. They got videotape and all of a sudden they don't. You know, you have the director of the FBI on the show saying there's no tape. There was. Nothing you're looking for is on those tapes. Like, what? Why did they say there was thousands of hours of tapes of people doing horrible shit? Why did they say that?
Right.
Didn't Pam Bondi say that?
What, are you talking about Epstein or did
Yeah, Epstein.
Yeah, she said it literally, I think a week before you had the FBI director sitting here telling you there was nothing, right?
She said something about that there was like thousands of hours of tapes of people doing horrible crimes.
There it is. And didn't the FBI dude say that there was nothing?
Cashman tells her there's nothing to look at. Okay. I mean, what am I going to do? Push back?
Right. No, of course.
Obviously, he's saying what he has to say.
Right.
Mystery surrounds the Jeffrey Epstein files after Bondi claims tens of thousands of videos. Tens of thousands. Jesus Christ.
I'll tell you what.
Oh my God. Was reviewing tens of thousands of videos of the wealthy financier with children or child porn. The comment met major reporters of the White House days after a similar remark to a stranger with a hidden camera raised the stakes for President Donald Trump's administration to prove it has in its possession previously unseen compelling documents, or just Bonnie Rand.
Just Bonnie Rand, yeah.
Everybody forgets about it.
Yeah, it seems crazy that we're just I would think just Trump's demeanor, his MO towards other countries, like if we're the ones funding them, giving them all this money and they're trying to fight a war, like typically he would be putting his boot on their neck, like listen, motherfucker, like talking shit, right? Like you have to do what I want you to do. And it just seems like, and now I think it just came out a couple days ago that they're trying to prosecute Netanyahu, right? And Trump's helping with it, trying to help him, Netanyahu, in that whole rigmarole.
Well, they're trying to try him while he's while he's in office.
Right, and I think
they're just trying to delay him because it's like we're at war,
right?
And they decide to go through it.
Yeah. I think something came out. I think a couple days ago. I could be wrong, but I was listening to Dave Smith talk about how Trump would actually like help him through this. I don't know. Could be wrong.
Okay, here it says during a Fox News Channel interview in February, Bondi suggested an alleged Epstein client list was sitting on her desk.
Yeah. Well, the list is one thing, right? I mean, there's so many people on the list that are probably innocent, but
they just obviously recording.
They gotta be a fucking hundred. Sitting and telling me right now.
Yeah, that's listen.
He had like 100 cameras in every single house.
You know his house is for sale?
Ta chansen i juli och augusti ska du få dela på vinster för 152 miljoner på postkodlotteriet.se.
Yeah, and my wife found it on Trulia or whatever it is, one of the maps, and she's like, "Look at this view," because we were in the townhouse. Yeah, like it's not a townhouse. It's a house. It's a big ass house. It's like multiple stories.
One right across the street from Central Park.
Yeah, that one. It's for sale right now.
How much?
I think it was like 60 or 70 million. something like that, which is what it's worth. But who wants to live in the Epstein house? First of all, if I bought that house, I'd want the Clinton painting. Can you give me that painting?
Yeah. It's got to come with all that shit.
I want George Bush with the Jenga towers and the paper airplanes. I want all of it.
And then the lady just died too. The lady got hit by a car. One of the witnesses, the Jeffrey Epstein witnesses. And apparently she had like a husband who was abusing her. And people like to. It's just like people like to use this stuff as like a political football to like argue for whatever they believe.
And also, when you get rich, powerful people. So here's the thing that happens with rich, powerful people. They can't go anywhere, right? If you're, like, say, a Jeff Bezos type, or someone who's like an Elon Musk type. It's just, and I'm not accusing of anything. I'm not saying. I'm just saying, at that caliber of celebrity, and that caliber of prominence, you can't go anywhere. If you're Bill Clinton back in the 80s or the 90s, whatever it was, you can't go anywhere. Everybody knows what you're on. You gotta be protected, right? But you want these experiences. So you have these guys, like a Jeffrey Epstein type guy, who works with the elite of the elite clientele. It's all movie stars, big-time politicians, world leaders, scientists, Nobel Prize winners, and they all meet together and have fascinating conversations and cocktails, and there's beautiful girls everywhere. Of course. What a great idea, right? And if you're naive and you don't understand honeypots.
Well, Maria Farmer was one of the accusers for what was inside the house in New York.
Okay, she said there were monitors inside this cabinet. I looked on the cameras and I saw toilet, bed, toilet. She said, visibly spooked. Like, I'm never going to use the restroom here and I'm never going to sleep here. You know what I mean? It was very obvious that they were like monitoring private moments.
Yeah. Of course. Maria Farmer was the one who worked at Epstein's office in New York, I think.
And this was the house, Jamie?
Yeah, I was looking up stuff on the house. That was like what they
Or the house still has fucking cameras in it somewhere that I haven't found it.
Okay.
När det dagliga dammet blir ett problem, då är det dags för Sweeper Duster. Effektiv mot alla typer av damm. Den fungerar som en kraftfull magnet som fångar och låser in dammet, även på svåråtkomliga ställen. Det är dags att säga adjö till dammet. Sweeper Duster, rent igen på nolltid.
Ni har väl inte missat att Lilo Plus Jackpot nu finns i live-casinot? För 1 krona extra har du chansen att vinna miljonbelopp på alla våra livespel. Woof!
Definitely.
Yeah, you'd have to scan the shit out of that house. You'd have to take the walls apart. There's probably listening devices inside the walls. And who knows? If this was like really an intelligence operation, yeah, they probably have that house fully wired.
Maria Farmer, I think she was the chick who was working the front desk at his office in Manhattan. And this is like a funny example of what I like to do. My mom is super left-wing. She's has her degree in fine arts. And she still is like an art professor. And my dad is an ex-post office worker. And he's only watches Fox. So my dad only watches Fox. They're divorced. My mom only watches CNN.
Jesus, why did they stay together? How weird. Who would have known?
And I like to like take things that are happening and controversial things, like for Epstein, for example, and I like to just like call my mom and argue with her, like argue the right wing side against my mom's point of view on Epstein, and then I'll call my dad and I'll make the same argument towards the opposite argument towards him. It's like a fucking thought experiment, or like a critical thinking exercise.
He is your parents.
And my mom, you know, she'll be like, of course, like Trump. There's more footage of Trump with Epstein than anybody. Are you kidding me? He's partying with him here. Like, of course he's compromised. And then my dad's like, it's fucking Clinton, bro. It's like, it's only Bill Clinton. Look, he's the only one on the Epstein files. Of course we know he's a pervert, all this stuff. But like, and then you have, so the funny thing is, both sides will use their little batch of evidence to support their idea and ignore the opposite, right? So like, the girl we were talking about, Virginia, she was literally on video saying that all this shit about Bill Clinton on the jet, going to the island, hanging out with Trump and all this stuff, and the right-wing people, like people I know, my parents and like older folks I know in Florida, will say, she came out, thank you for exposing Bill Clinton for being a pedo and doing all this stuff, and Virginia Giuffre, after this happened, she's like, you guys didn't listen to the whole fucking tape. She's like, I was telling you that Trump was at the penthouse 3 days a week, and visiting him. But you guys don't want to hear that. And it's like, you know, it's just this weird thing. Like if you do the math, there's gotta be so many high-level, powerful people that are somehow compromised. And do I think like Clinton and these guys are pedos? No, I don't think that at all. But if you were Jeffrey Epstein, I think it's super plausible to assume that he would try to trick them with like a girl who looks old, right? Who is possibly like on the borderline of being 18. And you say, oh yeah, this girl, she's 18, 19, 20, whatever. Meanwhile, she's like 17, and they had no idea, and they have video footage. And in like a court of law, if I'm the judge, I'm gonna let them, like, of course, they fucking lied to him. And this is not like some young girl, obviously, but they lied. Yeah. But like in like the court of public opinion, you're never gonna win in that case, right? Like, that comes out,
you're fucked. I mean, you're fucked if you're just going down and bang hookers. Like, it's like they're of age, but still, like whatever he was doing, preyed on people's desire for experiences and fights.
Yes.
And all these powerful people who, again, they can't just go call a hooker. And the hooker goes, oh my God, I just blew Bill Gates. This is nuts. You know what I mean? Like, you can't trust them. So you have to trust someone who really has a lockdown organization. And they felt like he did.
Yeah.
And that's why they all hung out with him even after he got arrested. This is what's crazy.
That is crazy.
A lot of Bill Gates meetings with him were after he was prosecuted. And he got this little slap on the wrist. He got essentially home detainment, and I think he had to do like weekends in the jail. Like it was great for underage sex, or you know, what's supposed to be a felony. The whole thing is crazy. And then when there's one reporter that really chased it down, I forget her name. She really looked into it, and that's when they opened up the second case, the second trial. Vicky Wolf. Was she from what paper? Vanity Fair. So she was responsible for because she was like, this is insane. Like, what's going on? And then there was the sheriff that had arrested him, said that I was told he was intelligence. I mean, you gotta think, man, if a guy like that is running these kind of parties with all these rich and powerful people, how many different worldwide decisions can be manipulated because of these people and the compromises you have on them.
Right.
It's really a brilliant thing to do.
Yeah.
From an intelligence perspective.
Dubbelsurt på Light när du ska förhandla. Känn halloneffekten med ett billigt mobilabonnemang.
Here are 5 facts every investor should know about the Nasdaq 100. The Nasdaq 100 comprises the 100 largest non-financial companies listed on the Nasdaq. 2. It heavily focuses on giant tech firms, whose products you use every day. 3. Since its inception, it has achieved an ROI of more than 19,000%. That's an average of 14% per year. 4. The Nasdaq 100 tends to be more volatile than the S&P 500 because of its concentration in big, fast-growing companies. How big? $6 trillion big. So, are you ready to invest in the companies that are shaping the future? Download eToro and explore Nasdaq 100 today.
Have your conservative values moved in one way or another? They
I mean, I would say
shifted
that
at all?
my personal values probably haven't shifted very much, but my political values have shifted libertarian. I mean, so I used to be a proponent of criminalization of marijuana. I'm no longer. I've been in favor of
What changed
criminalization.
that for you?
A couple of things. One was just the general sense the government sucks at everything. And the more I see the government try to crack down on things, the more prevalent it becomes. I mean, we're dealing pot on my 6th grade, 7th grade playground in public school. So obviously, like, that was
in LA.
Yeah, exactly. And then
It's terrible.
just a general perception, not only that the government sucks at everything, but that you got to own your own actions, and also examining more of the evidence about the impact of pot on people's lives. And you know, again, there's you ruining your own life through use of drugs, and there's drugs that legitimately ruin other people's lives. Right? There are drugs that remove your ability to even reason or think. I think there are only 2 reasons to criminalize drugs in any fashion. One is if there are drugs like, for example, PCP that legitimately make you violent, and then you are going out and committing acts of violence against people. Then there's a case. Or if you're talking about a drug where it legitimately robs you of your capacity to reason if you were heroin, if you were able to actually crack down on it successfully. But even there, I'm not sure that the proper government solution is criminalization, because we've criminalized it and it's still incredibly prevalent. So
I agree with you. I agree with you on that. And I agree with you in terms of drugs being extremely detrimental. And the other part is that there's comparable drugs that are legal. And comparable drugs meaning not even really comparable drugs that are far more devastating, like alcohol. Like you just go to any grocery store and buy a jug of whiskey and kill yourself.
Yeah.
It's not difficult.
And we have laws on the books already that prevent externalities. If you drive high, it's the same as driving drunk. So I'm not sure that you need additional laws to do that. And also, I'm not opposed to zoning laws. Like, I don't think a pot shop should open up right next to my house. Right? They're residential zoning. That's fine.
Same with liquor stores, though.
Right. I don't want a liquor store right next to my house. This is correct.
Yeah.
Right. So I become libertarian in some ways on that sort of stuff. The same thing is true, by the way, when it comes to the issue of same-sex marriage. So on a personal, moral level, I'm opposed to same-sex marriage. I'm an Orthodox Jew, and I believe that a man and a woman were made for each other. When it comes to government involvement, I don't think that's anybody's business. I think a lot of things. I think adultery is bad too. I don't think the government ought to be involved in adultery. I'm so strict. I don't think premarital sex is a good thing. Right? I've been very vocal about this. I was a virgin until I was married. My wife was a virgin until she was married. I think that's a good thing. So I think the government has anything to do with any of those things. No, I don't. I don't think it's any of the government's business. It's consensual activity. There are no externalities. So what exactly is the government getting involved in? And when the government gets involved in stuff, then there are externalities. Right? Once the government starts to cram down its vision on people, then you start to get unintended externalities. So for example, with the legalization, my view on marriage is that the government should get completely out of the business. I don't think the government should be involved in straight marriage. I don't think it should be involved in gay marriage. I think the government should be out.
I agree 100%.
And the reason that I say that is because, as a religious person, right, who believes in traditional marriage, I have two marriage certificates. I have one from the state that I don't give two craps about. It's buried somewhere in my garage. And then I have my religious marriage certificate, which meant, among other things, that I got to shut my wife, right? I mean, like, this was the one that mattered to me. And I think that's true for most religious people. The religious ceremony matters a lot more than the state saying a thing. And the state isn't incentivizing marriage. People aren't getting married because they're like, yeah, I need the tax break. Right. So that's a bunch of nonsense. And once the government decides what version of marriage it wants to push, that then comes into conflict with other values. So, for example, once the state of California decides that same-sex marriage is on legal par with heterosexual marriage, now I'm worried about the externality of, I have a religious day school, or I have my synagogue. My synagogue is a religious institution. It doesn't approve of same-sex marriage. Now is the government going to come in and tell my synagogue how it ought to act with regard to same-sex marriage? I don't think that's the government's business. So how about this? How about everybody gets to do basically what they want, associate with whom they want, and it's none of the government's business? This seems like a pretty good, happy medium.
I'm so glad you talked about the two things that I want to talk to you about that I'm sure we disagree. One of them being marijuana, and the other one being gay people marrying each other. So let's start with the marijuana. Do you think marijuana ruins people's lives? Is that one of your contentions?
I think that it can, and I think in the same way.
Have you ever had any experience with marijuana?
No, I'm just talking about the statistical overuse of marijuana among teenagers does have detrimental brain effects that have some long-term after effects.
It's pretty proven, and that's one of the things that I'm glad you said that, because I wanted to cover that when you were in the middle of a rant when we were joking around about 6th and 7th graders selling pot. Don't smoke pot when you're young. You really shouldn't. It's not good for the development of your brain. Same thing with drinking. I didn't smoke a lot of pot when I was a kid. I did it a handful of times until I was 30 years old. But I did drink a bunch of times when I was young in high school. It's terrible for brain development.
Right.
Especially before you're 25 and your frontal cortex hasn't been fully formed. Your frontal lobe is like this. It's a developing thing. And there was an article recently that I posted from the BBC that was saying that you probably shouldn't be considered an adult until you're 30.
Right, they're saying brain development doesn't even stop until you're 26 or 28. This is why when people are saying, let's lower the voting age to 16, I'm like,
what the fuck are you talking about? When I was 16, I was a chimp. Really, I was a chimp in a high school. Now, the problem that I have with many people's perceptions of marijuana is that it's based on ignorance, meaning no personal experience with it. And
listen, I'll admit I have no personal experience with marijuana, so
I know you don't.
I'm not speaking.
Probably should get high. That's what I'm trying to say.
Man, I've seen the effects on stock prices when people get high in the studio.
They jump up, man. They jump down for a little bit. A bunch of chickens jump off the boat, and then they come right back up. The marijuana thing is, in my opinion, it's another one of those things where people have this categorized box that they like to put marijuana users in. Like, this is the category: lazy, stoner, stupid, delusional.
It's too widespread for that. I mean, there are people I know who are doctors.
Yes.
So,
well, there's the jiu-jitsu community is a big one. There's a giant percentage of the jiu-jitsu community that does jiu-jitsu high. They have competitions.
Sounds like more of a party.
It's not, man. I'm telling you, because it's not what people think it is. If you've never smoked marijuana, this is going to be a very difficult thing to grasp. But marijuana enhances jiu-jitsu because it eliminates the rest of the world. When you're rolling, which rolling is like, say, if you and Jamie were going to have a sparring match, that would be rolling. Like, you slap hands, and then you go, and you try to choke him, and he's trying to kick you in an arm bar, and you're going after it. When you do that on marijuana, it's like you don't think of anything else other than those movements, and it becomes like this very intense meditation in violence. Like, it's not violent in terms of, most of the time you don't really even get hurt. It's like you get to the point, like, one of the beautiful things about jiu-jitsu is you can grab a hold of someone and choke them to the point where they're going to go to sleep. But you would kill them if you kept going. And they tap, right, you're friends again. And everybody's cool. And you try to do it to me, and I try to do it to you. And you really can do it reasonably hard without people getting hurt. It happens every day all throughout the world. A lot of these people are high. And they're doing this jiu-jitsu practice in this almost like trends. It's like, it's a transcendent state.
If you can function when you're using marijuana, I don't care.
But you can, sort of.
Right, and
perceptions are off.
So, I mean, I would assume there's a small subset of the population for whom that's not true, right? Who are overusing marijuana.
Yes.
And
that's probably the majority, in fact.
Okay, so then, you know, but again, that's not a case
the same way with food.
I agree. So I don't think there's anything we disagree about here, because I'm not talking about criminalizing marijuana use. I think that we should honestly discuss the evidence that for a subset of the population, there is some evidence that marijuana is addicting, but it's a subset. It's not everybody who's on marijuana. The vast majority of people on marijuana are not addicted to marijuana.
I think
in the same way that alcohol, and it's true about alcohol as well.
There's people that are going to be addicted to almost anything. And I think there's absolutely people that are addicted to sugar. There's for sure people that are addicted to nicotine and alcohol and all these things that we let people have.
The material addictiveness of marijuana is not comparable to opioids, for example.
It's not even comparable to alcohol or nicotine. It seems to be very rare when people become physically addicted to it, extremely rare. And what's common, though, is abuse. And it's common in everything that human beings consume. So abuse is common, as we said, with food. It's certainly common with alcohol. It's certainly common with pills.
But this is why, you know, I really believe that the way to solve some of these problems is a social fabric problem. Like, it's a parenting problem, it's a social fabric problem, it's a personal choice problem. So that's why virtually every solution I suggest is so funny. You know, I'm constantly, conservatives like me who are libertarian leaning are constantly accused of being non-compassionate. No, it's just our compassionate solutions don't involve the use of government. It's like we're going to encourage people to make better decisions with their lives. And if you choose not to do that, it's a free country.
Well, you know, coming from a religious background, you have this community that reinforces this kind of behavior and thought. And I think that's one of the major, really one of the best benefits of religion is that moral fabric and that community, the sense of community. Even Silvans and Mormons, you know, they're the nicest folks, right? They believe something that is fucking patently insane. If you go and read the Joseph Smith text from 1820 when he was 14 years old, the shit that he wrote.
I try not to get into doctrinal insanity. I wear a funny hat all day.
I hear it. Well,
you know,
I was going to get to that.
Yeah, but you know, with that said, I mean, Alexis de Tocqueville talks about this, you know, early on in the American Republic. The idea is that what makes America very different is the idea you don't need a big government when you do have a supportive social fabric where people feel like they're at least oriented toward a common goal. It's one of the problems that I think we have in the country right now. I'm not sure people are oriented toward even a common sense of conversation. Right? I mean, you don't have to agree on everything in order to have a common sense of the important values that unify the country or should.
Yes.
I mean, I always use Sam Harris as sort of my mentor here because he's obviously a militant atheist. I'm an equally strong believer. And yet, when it comes to the things that we'd like to see happen in the country, not on a government policy level, but on a let's have a conversation level and discuss on an evidence level, we're on the same page. There's certain core assumptions you have to make in order for that to happen. My argument about America and the West is that those core assumptions are built on Judeo-Christian foundations. Sam's core argument seems to be that they're built on evolutionary biology. We differ a little bit there.
I don't want to let this marijuana thing go just yet. One of the things that I wanted to bring up to you was this idea that if you're a religious person, don't you think that there's certain things that maybe God put here for us to consume, to change your perspective, to allow you to reach new levels of consciousness? So I think it's entirely possible that some of these things that are here, I know you haven't experienced them, but they might literally have been put there by God. And there's some evidence to say that a lot of the texts from the Bible, that in particular there was, I think it was the University of Tel Aviv, somewhere in Jerusalem, where these scholars they were trying to decipher what it meant when Moses encountered the burning bush.
Right.
And they believed that it may have been the acacia tree, which is very rich in dimethyltryptamine, which is a psychedelic substance that actually the brain produces, and it's very common in plants. And they think that this might have been when he met God, and God was a burning bush, that this might have been some crude translation of them being involved in some sort of a psychedelic experience. Now it sounds outlandish unless you had that psychedelic experience. And when you have, you very well could think that you were in a conversation with God. This is on Earth, and this is something that may very well have been lost information, or this may very well have been rituals that people participated in to bring them closer together and to reinforce that sense of community that you do get from a church and you do get from a group of people that share moral beliefs and values. And there's real good discussion that a lot of these experiences that became these religious doctrines came from psychedelic experiences. Now, as someone who's never experienced that before, I know this is probably a very strange thing to try to even wrap your head around. It is entirely alien until you experience it, but it might very well be religious.
I mean, I've heard that from other people who've used those kinds of drugs. I mean, Sam actually made this argument to me too about using psychedelics. And I mean, maybe. I mean, again, apples. Well, okay, so this argument, I will say, I'm not super fond of the argument that God made something and therefore it's ours to use, or I mean, like I keep kosher, right? Like God made pigs, I don't eat. So, so I am not a huge fan of the argument that because something is here, or because an urge is natural, therefore we ought to imbibe, or therefore we ought to participate in a particular activity. You know, one of the things that I'm very big on, I'm a rationalist when it comes to religion, as much as you can be a rationalist with regard to religion, to the extent that I think that it's up to us to use our reasonable faculties to determine the proper use of things. So, which is why you shouldn't overuse drugs, even if you're going to use drugs, for example.
This is part of the problem of making things illegal. You make things illegal, then you really don't know what it is, or how it affects the body, or what's the right dose or the wrong dose. And then people get involved in these terrible situations where they're taking things and they're just guessing.
I mean, there's truth to that, but it's also true that on a social level, I'm not talking about legal because we totally agree on the legal level. On the social level, there's a couple of things that are true of, for example, the Orthodox Jewish community. Low rates of addiction because people have that social fabric, they don't feel the necessity. Also, as you say, substance use in moderation can actually be quite a good thing. So low rates of alcoholism in the Jewish community, and part of that is the fact that you are given Kiddush wine from the time you're a kid, right? You actually are... It's
destigmatized.
Yeah, it's destigmatized, and the idea is that in its proper context, this could be a good thing.
Right.
So, I'll admit, I don't know enough about the proper context of marijuana to know when it would be a quote-unquote good thing. And so...
It can't be a good thing.
The truth is I don't enjoy drinking. Right, I'm not a drinker. I don't enjoy. I like reality. I like living in reality, and I like experiencing it totally sober. So I've never really felt the urge to do any of that stuff. I hear the pinch. But I've never really felt the interior desire or need to.
I completely understand that. I think that what we're dealing with, though, is perceptions that have been molded by laws that were shaped by tyrants. That's what.
I mean, again, that's totally possible and plausible.
Yeah. But it's historically accurate. I mean, when it comes to prohibition with alcohol didn't work. Prohibition with drugs is just making the cartels bigger. It's causing more problems.
I agree with that on a practical level. Whether you like drugs or don't like drugs, government interventionism is generally a giant fail.
I think our perceptions of what is good for you and is bad for you is also based on laws that the government created ignorantly. The sweeping psychedelic act of 1970, which made virtually everything psychedelic, that they missed a few things slipped through the crack, but all of the tryptamines and most of them, the psilocybin, LSD, all that stuff was made completely illegal, but people really didn't even know what it was. And a lot of that is why we base our ideas of what's good or bad for you. It's based on what is legal and what
Listen, I'll admit
other people have done with it.
On this area, I'll admit not only complete experiential ignorance, but complete evidentiary ignorance. So I haven't examined the evidence. I really don't have strong opinions on any of this
I
stuff.
think it's one of the bridges that we all could use between conservative thought and liberal thought, particularly for people that are dying. It's one of the things that Johns Hopkins found, and
Den miljön vi har är helt fantastisk och det är alltid otroligt roligt och bra när vi är iväg på läger och under mästerskap också, så att det blir som en andra familj.
Vill du göra en bra deal? Just nu har vi extra bra erbjudanden på den här. Och den här. Välkommen till Elgiganten.
BlackRock is taking over the world and no one is stopping them.
This is not another mainstream video about BlackRock. By now, people know the public narrative.
BlackRock is an extremely dangerous company.
They have that much control to get everybody to do what they wanted to do. Larry Fink, the guy running BlackRock, is really the president of the United States. If we look at the kind of influence he's got in every industry, Joe.
But Larry Fink isn't content with owning companies anymore. Slowly but surely, he's taking control of the very bloodlines of the global system. Larry Fink has started executing a $68 trillion game plan, and no one is going to stop him.
The fact that BlackRock has extraordinary influence behind the scenes that's unprecedented. This is not good for the public interest.
This is Tariq Fancy, an ex-BlackRock executive turned whistleblower. We've sat down with him to bring you some exclusive insights into the secretive world of BlackRock.
I was formerly BlackRock's first chief investment officer for sustainable investing.
And to uncover BlackRock's new game plan, we've interviewed Dr. Thomas Leroy, an expert in public banking and infrastructure finance.
The United States, if you think of this, spent more money than ever spent on a project before and lost 38,000 lives in the building of the Panama Canal. My administration will be reclaiming the Panama Canal, and we've already started doing it.
BlackRock strikes steel to bring ports on both sides of Panama Canal under American control.
Trump wants to reclaim the Panama Canal. And while the world is focused on the headlines, most people have no idea what's really going on behind the curtain. This isn't just about Trump's America First playbook or about BlackRock securing the most important trade route in the Western Hemisphere. The Panama Canal is only a tiny piece in a far bigger board game.
The one international airport at every major city in the region. Buy that and you have control. It's a monopoly.
This is about a global game of airports, pipelines, power grids, and data routes. And right now, Larry Fink is quietly buying up the whole world. We'll get to all of that. But to understand why Larry Fink is reshaping the world, we have to start at the moment he realized he wanted to control it. It's the late 1960s. The average Californian teenager dreams about changing the world, or at least escaping it for a little while. But Larry Fink isn't your average teenager. While others chase enlightenment, Larry doesn't concern himself with such trivial matters.
He's consumed by a far more important question. How can he become one of the most powerful men in the world? How can he, a shoemaker's son from nowhere, be spoken of in the same breath as presidents, CEOs, and kings?
This is a guy who always wanted more than he had. You could sense his ambition.
Politics seems like the obvious path. So naturally, once Larry hit 17, he enrolls at UCLA as a political science major. But then, something seemingly insignificant changes everything. On impulse, he enrolls in a few extra classes in real estate. Suddenly, he's not dreaming of the White House anymore, but about skyscrapers and fortunes. After 2 more years and armed with a real estate MBA, Larry Fink is still unsure on how exactly to turn his dreams into a reality. But his goal still remains the same: power and riches. So like most power-hungry finance graduates, he heads to the place where megalomania naturally takes you to the top: Wall Street. Little does he know the trauma waiting for him when he gets there. Now, 34 years old, Larry is at a crossroads. He's spent almost a decade climbing the ranks at First Boston, one of New York's most prestigious investment banks. But he's just made a huge mistake, one that'll do more than just tarnish his tidy plan for world domination. Let's rewind a little bit. It's 1976, and Larry Fink steps onto Wall Street for the very first time, joining the bond trading department at First Boston. As a young Jewish trader, he encounters the prejudices typical of that era, but Wall Street, for all its sins, has one sacred truth: it worships only money. Make money, and suddenly nothing else matters. And Larry has found his calling. He starts printing money by the millions. How?
At First Boston, he was a pioneer in developing an obscure financial product that was pretty much under the public radar.
3 words: mortgage-backed securities. Words that still send shivers down the back of Wall Street today. But what even are mortgage-backed securities? Think of mortgage-backed securities like a financial casserole. Mix a hunch of home loans, bake them into one product, then slice it up to sell to investors. The idea? Diversification. The danger? Too many bad ingredients ruin the dish. Homeowners pay their mortgages and investors collect steady profits. A beautiful arrangement if you're on the right side. In other words, it's the perfect fixed income instrument to monetize the American dream itself. Along with mullets and shoulder pads, mortgage-backed securities are all the rage in the 1980s. And Larry didn't just ride this wave, he practically created it. He helped invent, popularize, and of course, profit handsomely from these complex financial instruments. But more interestingly, he will profit even more from the collapse of his creation later. For now though, he rises faster than anyone before him at First Boston, and within 2 years he becomes managing director, the youngest ever in the firm's history. Larry even overheard whispers around the office. The higher-ups were considering him for CEO. But with such extraordinary success comes extraordinary ego. He starts rubbing people the wrong way. At his worst moments, he's remembered as a big screen dick. Wall Street loves putting ballooning egos on pedestals, but it loves tearing them down even more. One misstep is all it takes. Determined to cement his path to CEO, Larry takes a huge gamble. The Federal Reserve is about to make a decision on interest rates soon, and Larry goes all in, certain that interest rates will rise. He positions the firm to profit accordingly, and just in case he's wrong, he buys financial insurance, a hedge to protect the downside. Then, disaster strikes. Interest rates don't rise, they plunge. Larry shrugs. He'd anticipated this possibility after all. His carefully placed insurance would cover the losses, or at least he believes it would. Except there was a problem. A single devastating numerical mistake. Larry had miscalculated his hedge using incorrect numbers.
I was so angry at myself. I was just mortifying myself.
A small error on paper, but in reality, it cost the firm $100 million, gone in an instant. A $100 million mistake, enough to destroy anyone's career overnight, no matter how brilliant. Despite generating at least $1 billion for the firm during his tenure, Larry quickly becomes an outcast at First Boston, one that people won't talk to in the hallways. Not long after, he's jobless. Taking on too much risk in the markets can completely screw you, but you don't have to make the same mistakes as Larry Fink here. If you've thought about investing and trading to the capital markets but are too scared of the risk, our free community group is the place to learn. Take that first step. We have started a free group where we're working with an ex-Wall Street trader whom I know personally. So if you're ready to stop following the crowd, and especially in these volatile times like now, you have a massive opportunity to capitalize on all that crazy stuff that's going on in the world. If you're ready to do that and to learn how the elites and the big boys, the big institutions are moving and copy their exact moves, check out the link to our group in the description below. And by the way, this is the first version of this group. We will add much more value, free downloads, cool analyses, and so on in the coming weeks. Just give us a little bit more time.
Så du fick sagt allt om säkerhet?
Det var inte så konkret så, alltså, utan det var något. Ja.
Jag tror på det. Välj till en familj. Ett riktigt säkert abonnemang. Men en bra dialog är alltid det bästa sättet att skydda dina barn.
Alla vill ha något i magen. Kebanos eller korvskal. Kycklingcurry, ingen måtta. Alla vill vänta på Q8. Glöm alla dieter. Prova alla korvnyheter.
Du jobbar hårt för en god munhälsa. Men borsthuvudet då? Efter 3 månader börjar det slitas ut. Plattas bort mindre effektivt och byggs på. Men ett nytt borsthuvud ger en mer hälsosam rengöring. Byt nu! Oral-B låter eltandborste göra jobbet.
Hjärtstilla stabiliserar hjärtfunktionen, sänker blodtrycket och skyddar katten från stress. Gridcare Indoor torrfoder och antistress frystorkat köttgodis med hjärtstilla. Gridcare. Förebygg med näring.
We should have been fired a year ago and a quarter ago before the loss. We were making so much money, and we had no idea why we were making so much money. We had just extraordinary risk.
Larry had always gotten ahead by taking more risk than others, but ultimately that's exactly what led to his downfall. For the first time, Larry carefully considers risk. Risk, he realizes, is a powerful drug, seductive, but dangerous. He had learned this lesson the hard way. From now, he vows to become the master of managing risk. What seems like a conservative approach would soon become Larry's golden ticket to world domination. But first, Larry has another hurdle to overcome. To rebuild, he needs an elite team of traders. A tough task when you're the castaway of Wall Street after losing $100 million. Yet, somehow, he pulls it off anyway. A powerhouse team of 8 all-stars. Now all he needs is financial backing. That's when Larry crosses path with legendary financier Steven Schwartzman, co-founder of the private equity titan Blackstone. Schwartzman, always looking for his next big play, agrees to bankroll Fink's fledgling operation with $5 million for a 50% stake. And just like that, in 1988, BlackRock is born. Right from the start, BlackRock flips the script on Wall Street by putting risk management front and center.
The investors had no idea what they were doing. And there was a great need for a company that starts off with a high concentration in risk analytics.
BlackRock's sales pitch: manage fixed income assets like bonds for clients while offering state-of-the-art risk analysis as part of the deal, and in return they charge a percentage fee based on the assets under management. Unlike traditional firms, which separate risk oversight from their day-to-day investing, BlackRock's innovation is to embed rigorous risk modeling directly into every investment decision from day one. Larry's idea of managing risk catches on fast, despite the high-stress nature of the job. Within months, the company turns huge profits, and within a year, they were managing nearly $3 billion. Unheard of for a firm that young. But behind the rapid rise was something even more extraordinary, a secret weapon that would secure BlackRock's reign for decades.
His open secret to success is a massive computerized system called Aladdin.
Short for Asset, Liability, Debt, and Derivative Investment Network. Aladdin was more than a computerized system. It becomes the brain and beating heart of Larry's new empire. It allows Larry's team to instantly simulate endless what-if scenarios. What if interest rates rise by 1%? How would that impact a $10 billion bond portfolio? What happens if mortgages in California start defaulting en masse? Aladdin delivers answers in a blink. For any large institution trying to navigate volatile markets, Aladdin becomes priceless. Its moment of truth comes in 1994 during the infamous Great Bond Market Massacre. As bond prices plummet across Wall Street, most investors suffer brutal losses. But BlackRock, having spent 5 years fine-tuning its risk models, weathers the storm with minimal damage. Clients quickly realized it wasn't luck, it was Aladdin. The software flags critical risks early, allowing BlackRock to sidestep the worst of the carnage. In fact, this episode reveals an early pattern and sends a clear message. When things get messy, when risk gets complicated, you better call BlackRock. And as you will see later, that message still holds true today. However, BlackRock's unbothered rise was short-lived, as Fink and Schwartzman soon begin to butt heads. Larry wants to attract the best talent by offering ownership in BlackRock, but he insists this comes entirely from Schwartzman's share. After all, he and his team are doing all the heavy lifting. Schwartzman, not one to be pushed around, refuses.
We set up an economic arrangement which ended up being inappropriate for a business that was growing as rapidly, needs as many people. I made a mistake. I took the original agreement. I didn't want to change it, which was advantageous, for my side.
He clings to the contract, but called his decision a heroic mistake years later. By 1994, BlackRock manages over $50 billion. But the power struggle between Larry and Steven reaches its inevitable conclusion, a split. Schwartzman stays with Blackstone. Larry takes full control of BlackRock. But what happens next is what truly sets BlackRock apart, transforming it into something far more powerful and potentially dangerous than just any other financial giant, something beyond even Larry Fink's wildest imagination. After BlackRock goes public in 1999, it enters an era of rapid growth and expansion. The secret weapon behind its explosive growth? Aladdin. What began as BlackRock's internal risk management software soon becomes the gold standard for portfolio management in Wall Street. Sold to rival firms and clients eager to understand complex financial risks, Aladdin quickly becomes a virtual money printing machine, charging juicy fees for a software that the entire financial industry desperately needs, and not only them. BlackRock is no longer just an asset manager. Larry Fink is building a sprawling empire. But to realize his grand vision, Larry goes on a shopping spree in the early 2000s. With every deal, BlackRock expands beyond its roots in fixed income securities. Now it's equities, hedge funds, or global fund platforms. BlackRock becomes a one-stop shop for institutional investors trusted to manage everything, everywhere. With each company they absorb, BlackRock grows tremendously, with their assets under management rising dramatically each passing year. But it's a time of complete market mayhem that provides Larry with his biggest prize yet and finally makes BlackRock a world power. Mortgage-backed securities. Remember those? Larry, the kingpin of these kinds of securities in the 80s, had since learned his lesson. For the last 20 years, he'd been busy nurturing his risk management empire, extending its reach, bolstering its influence. But MBSs hadn't conveniently disappeared. In fact, they'd cast a spell over American finance and promptly corrupted it.
There are fears the sell-off will continue on Wall Street. It is definitely a very, very difficult time, and it's not going to get better quickly.
We are watching this market deteriorate. The stock market is now down 21%.
Larry, familiar with the sting of MBSs, had limited BlackRock's exposure to these volatile securities. Major banks feasted greedily on them without truly understanding the risks. Huge financial giants woke up to the realization that the billions they had invested in these assets were evaporating before their eyes. As they watched Bear Stearns lose 90% of its value and the Titan Lehman Brothers become the Titanic, everyone began to panic. This spelled disaster to many, but opportunity to a few. Companies run conservatively, like JP Morgan and Jamie Dimon, managed to up sickly competitors at a bargain and becoming the world's most powerful bank. Larry didn't intend to miss the party. Barclays Bank bought part of the collapsed Lehman, thinking they were getting a steal, until they ran the numbers and figured out that they bought the financial equivalent of nuclear waste. Desperate for cash, Barclays was forced to sell its crown jewel. Barclays Global Investors owned to iShares, the world's leading provider of passive ETFs. Larry refuses to let the opportunity pass. Flush with cash and ambition, he seizes the moment and strikes a deal to buy the crown jewel out for $13.5 billion. While few talk about it, that single deal transformed them into the world's largest asset manager. ETFs are exchange-traded funds that investors spread their money across countless companies and reduce risk, and now the biggest are all owned by BlackRock.
Med pengarna på Lidl. 30 pack Coca-Cola, 139 kronor. Wernerssons goda, 69,90 kilo. Svenska klistermaten, 18,90 kilo. Lidl plus. Ja, som Lidl.
Nordnet, roligare sparande i aktier och fonder.
Varför vill du reservera din soffa? Kanske för att njuta av 70 kronor rabatt på 3 köp från Burger King och Foodora. Ännu en anledning att se Papagojas middagskorv. Vad är det burgare då? Foodora, för att jag vill.
They buy the individual stocks on behalf of their clients and wind up owning chunks of about any big company you can imagine. Now, 4% in Walmart or 8% in UPS sounds more harmless than it actually is, but it means that BlackRock isn't just a player anymore. They have become a kingmaker, holding major voting power over corporate decisions, from executive pay to diversity initiatives or mass layoffs. Yet crucially, BlackRock is still technically classified as a passive investor, just managing other people's money, not its own. It's a seemingly small technicality, but one that would soon give them unprecedented protection. More on that later. For now, Larry Fink had done it again. He capitalized brilliantly on the crisis. After the acquisition of BGI, passive ETFs like iShares would grow phenomenally popular over the following years. Looking back, BlackRock executives must have been feeling pretty pleased with themselves, with a stranglehold over passive ETFs right before their boom as an investing vehicle. But if all that isn't enough, these mortgage-backed securities, the ones wreaking havoc on firms across the world, they are so mind-bendingly complex. Companies stuck with these investments struggle to make sense of them. Larry, one of the original architects, suddenly becomes a very popular man. Already a leader in risk management, everyone wants Larry's team to take a look at their investment portfolios and lend their wisdom, for a price of course. And then, the mighty architect of money, the bank of all banks, come calling.
BlackRock relation to the Fed is a really useful thing for the public to know about. This information can be used to make our lives better, and it can do with stuff to make some people really rich.
None other than the Federal Reserve itself trying to patch the pieces of a crumbling economy and stop the bleeding is desperate for help.
As an expert on mortgage-backed securities, he was called in to help and to clean up.
U.S. central bankers like Timothy Geithner tapped BlackRock to write the playbook for how to rescue a financial system on the brink. This is no overstatement.
There was a day in which Geithner called him 21 times in a day.
Larry's team drafts the game plan for restructuring portfolios, valuing toxic assets, and bailing out collapsing banks. Larry Fink had turned the greatest financial disaster of a generation into his greatest triumph. While American finance takes years to rebound, he emerges with friends in high places, more money than ever, and what he's always wanted: the influence of a president, a company like a world power, without a single campaign nor a single vote, true power. And while no one was taking notice, he has created a playing field where, no matter what, BlackRock always wins.
We had no regulation, no federal or state public official had any idea what was going on in those markets.
I was really upset about what went on Wall Street that brought about the financial crisis. Not only almost destroyed the financial system of the United States, almost destroyed the financial system of the world.
After the financial crisis, the US government is forced to act. Wall Street's biggest players had done too much damage to everyday Americans. It was time to clamp down on them. Time to send shivers down the back of powerful Wall Street executives. Rules were passed and regulations tightened, at least for some.
I think fundamentally the question is, do we feel like the regulators have the ability to protect the public?
The Dodd-Frank Wall Street reform was at the center of it all. The cornerstone of financial regulation. It creates a label, too big to fail. This designation targets SIFIs, whose collapse could bring the whole economy crashing down. Immediately, the biggest banks feel the heat. Dozens are swiftly branded as systemically important, triggering stricter oversight, expensive capital reserves, and burdensome regulatory compliance. Everything profit-seeking shareholders hate to hear. But what about BlackRock? Surely the world's largest asset manager fits this description. Not quite. Here's the little talked about part.
To quote Bernie Sanders, he says that it's not that Congress regulates Wall Street, it's Wall Street regulates Congress.
While the rules got stricter for everyone else, BlackRock executives were busy working their ways into the back rooms of Washington. By the time regulators finally turned their attention toward asset managers, it set off alarm bells at 50 Hudson Yards, BlackRock global headquarters. The regulation has to be stopped, no matter what. But Larry Fink and his team are ready. They have already carefully prepared a game plan to carve out a loophole for BlackRock to slip right through the new rules. BlackRock launches an unprecedented lobbying blitz combined with a strategic PR campaign aimed at convincing the public and regulators that a BlackRock collapse would pose no systemic risk. Larry Fink personally leads President Obama, ensuring his message is heard at the highest possible level. His efforts pay off big time. To this day, BlackRock has avoided the too big to fail label.
There needs to be greater scrutiny on the size and influence of large institutions if, number one, they can influence public policy and politics in ways that don't align with the public interest, right? And I think a lot of people on Wall Street will just brush that off and say, oh, that doesn't matter. And I would say they're dead wrong on that because the majority of the U.S. population has now believed for decades that the system is rigged.
However, there's an even more striking case of BlackRock's power in Washington, the passive investor status. If you are labeled a passive investor, you're off the hook from the rules everyone else has to follow. Now guess who decides if BlackRock is a passive investor or not? BlackRock itself. And it's this passive status that allows it to control substantial shares of companies across almost every industry without breaking a sweat.
The fact that BlackRock has extraordinary influence behind the scenes that's unprecedented and is able to use political spending and other influence tools to, be able to solidify that influence is not good for the public interest.
But BlackRock's power isn't just about dodging regulation. It's about writing the rules of the game.
När apoteket samt måste du inte gå till ett apotek.
Du kan få dina läkemedel hemskickade. Jättesmidigt med apoteket samt.
So we have a relatively new infrastructure venture, public infrastructure thing called the Canada Infrastructure. The construction of that institution was both advised by these large consultants, private sector consultants, firms like McKinsey, but also importantly by BlackRock. And the result is that the law, the public law governing Canada Infrastructure, called the Canada Infrastructure Banking Act, had as its mandate to use public money to generate private investment in ways that generate a return.
In other words, BlackRock doesn't just navigate systems, it shapes them from the ground up in ways that favor its mission. Critics see in Larry Fink and BlackRock the poster child for what's broken in the system, and you might wonder, how is this even possible? The answer is a playbook used by the corporate elites for centuries. They call it the revolving door between corporate America and the government.
I think what you're seeing a lot of is in recent years this revolving door going back and forth, where, and it's happened at all the firms that I've seen, where people go in and out of government.
It's a common theme that banks, investment firms, and corporations hire government officials and governments hire corporate America's top executives, each borrowing influence from the other.
One of the problems we have is that some of the smartest people will go into politics, and they don't get paid a lot of money. This is not Singapore where the government officials get paid, somewhat competitive. In the private sector, it's the U.S. And so when they leave office, they're going to want to go and get a job that is, that pays well, right? Because all their friends that they went to business school or law school or undergraduate are getting paid a lot of money in sectors that have no value for society. Some of them, explicitly allowing money laundering, whatever. So they sort of want to get paid well.
But BlackRock turns this revolving door into an art form. By 2020, according to members of Congress, more than 100 individuals have moved back and forth between BlackRock and top US government institutions, the Treasury, the Federal Reserve, the SEC, and more. But it goes much further than that.
There is the potential for abuse to people with experience could conceivably move into government, create regulations or create precedents that would favor their prior employers, and then turn around and go back to their prior employers. That's possible.
Many point to the fact that having BlackRock alumni in key regulatory positions makes it far less likely that the firm will face serious oversight.
I think we'll just come to a place where, there's a revolving door, there's significant skewed incentives, and this sees both U.S. parties. And I think the unfortunate reality is that it's very hard to see a way out, and some way to restore the trust of the American people who sign out to taking this against their political system and two parties that seem to clearly not work for them.
It is not just in the United States. BlackRock's political influence is global. Since 2004, the firm has hired at least 84 former government officials, regulators, and central bankers from around the world. At the same time, ex-BlackRock executives are placed into public office, quietly shaping policy from both sides of the fence. The most striking example, former BlackRock executive Friedrich Merz is now Chancellor of Germany, Europe's largest economy. But BlackRock isn't just influencing governments or global institutions, it's dictating terms.
And I've been in rooms with the World Bank and with multi-billion, trillion-dollar institutional investors where they've said to senior World Bank officials that what we want you, the World Bank, to do, and other public banks, is to wrap our investments in guarantees. We want you to guarantee both our capital and our returns.
BlackRock takes the profits and the public, the taxpayer, takes the risk. And they have the political muscle to get what they want. But if you think their power only comes with cozy government ties, you're missing the bigger picture. Because BlackRock's true power isn't who they know. The true reason why BlackRock is so scarily powerful is something else entirely. They say the world of finance runs on Excel, but these days it actually runs on Aladdin, the software platform designed by BlackRock. What Windows is to personal computing, Aladdin is to global finance. Only unlike Windows, Aladdin has no serious competitor. Even BlackRock's fiercest rivals, Vanguard and State Street, rely on Aladdin as their go-to system to manage risk. In fact, it's the operating system of global finance. By 2020, Aladdin tracks an astounding 21 trillion for roughly 240 clients, about 10% of all global financial assets. Yet the real power of Aladdin lies not just with private finance, but with public institutions themselves. When crisis strikes, whether it's the US Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, or Japan's trillion-dollar pension funds, they all turn to a single company for help, BlackRock. During the COVID-19 market turmoil in 2020, the Federal Reserve urgently hires BlackRock to manage its massive bond buying programs, designed to stabilize the economy.
BlackRock's relationship with the Fed is a really useful thing for the public to know about. The central bank can do things to make our lives better and with stuff to make some people really rich. The Federal Reserve has gone to BlackRock for particular services that BlackRock is good at. Those programs were unprecedented and unusual.
In other words, central banks and governments across the globe have effectively outsourced their crisis response mechanisms directly to BlackRock's Aladdin.
What's unusual here is that the topmost people at the Federal Reserve are talking with the leader of the biggest asset management firm, and that in these moments of crisis, we're just going to this firm, not necessarily all other firms.
This dependency raises deeply uncomfortable questions. If every major financial institution depends on Aladdin, Who steps in if Elegant fails? And who ensures BlackRock doesn't exploit Elegant's insights for its own gain? The simple answer: no one really. Elegant itself isn't regulated. It's just a software tool owned by BlackRock. And remember, as an asset manager, BlackRock officially isn't considered systemically important. For now, BlackRock's Elegant remains virtually unchecked, a single black box powering the operating system of global finance. And at the top of this mountain of money and influence stands one man, Larry Fink.
You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock we are forcing behaviors.
But no empire lasts forever. Resistance is forming. Cracks are beginning to appear in Larry's fortress because, as powerful as he is, Larry Fink doesn't always get what he wants. Larry Fink is under fire. For years, BlackRock flew under the radar. In fact, outside of high finance, only few people knew about BlackRock. But that changed in the late 2010s. For the first time, the world pushes back the allegation BlackRock is destroying the planet, pumping billions into oil giants, leading to the demise of Amazon forest. Protesters repeatedly swarm BlackRock offices, even show up at Fink's own doorstep. The Guardian names Fink one of the top climate villains for this very reason. But Fink had seen this coming, and he came prepared. He didn't want to play the villain for long. Instead, he becomes the self-elected conscience of Wall Street. He rebrands BlackRock as a champion of ESG.
So it stands for environment, social, and governance. And the idea is that there are specific issues, whether it has to do with climate change or whether it has to do with boardroom diversity, that are important issues for investors.
Larry Fink declares sustainability, diversity, and climate action as BlackRock's core investing principles.
This is a bunch of American Wall Street bullshit.
But at first, it works. Finally, a Wall Street titan that cares about people and the planet.
CEO Larry Fink made a lot of noise around it. The whole space had grown sort of in the last century. The idea was that you invest in a portfolio, but you don't partake in the ones that you think are not ethically correct, because you don't want to make money off it effectively.
BlackRock is briefly celebrated as a trailblazer and hailed as a model for moral capitalism. But with its repositioning comes his boldest move yet, a direct threat to America's CEOs. Companies must go green or risk losing BlackRock's backing altogether.
You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock we are forcing behaviors.
Suddenly, BlackRock is no longer just managing portfolios. They are shaping the moral compass of corporate America itself. But not everyone buys into it. Environmental groups point to the hypocrisy. BlackRock still had massive fossil fuel assets. On the other hand, Larry Fink's rebranding comes under huge scrutiny from powerful figures on Wall Street and in conservative circles.
And so what happened was they were saying ESG is good for profits, which is the sports equivalent of saying if I play really clean and I'm sportsmanlike, I'm going to win more games and score more goals. That was not true, as I saw from the inside.
Legendary investor Sam Zell mocks Larry Fink openly as extraordinarily hypocritical. You might already know the real estate tycoon from our previous documentary about him. Zell sarcastically remarks, "I didn't know Larry Fink had been made God." Venture capitalist Chamath Palihapitiya goes even further and labels ESG investing a complete fraud. For him, the politically correct rhetoric is only a way to mask poor financial returns. And even our interview guest publicly denounced BlackRock's ESG agenda as a mere marketing spin.
Just a way to exploit people who care about it and waste time.
Here's how he breaks down how it works from the inside.
Suddenly say, hey, I have this product, and it's an ETF or it's some sort of passive market product that's just effectively a basket of shares that tracks this index.
But remember, BlackRock's profits don't come from market performance. They come from the quiet fee they charge on your money. management fees on the trillions sitting in ETFs, typically just 0.5%. But across the industry, there's a constant hunt for reasons to raise those fees and extract more from the system, bit by bit.
And there's a lot of fee pressure, and I need to differentiate it so I can get premium pricing. And then you realize that, wait a second, if I take this ETF and make it an ESG ETF, or green ETF, which is, I would say, if I simplify it, it's the product equivalent of taking the thing you had, painting it green, and then putting it out there and putting a higher price tag. Is that something we can get away with? The market was doing this because there was an opportunity to go in and paint the thing green and get more fees, and no one is actually policing what it is to be green.
By 2022, the backlash had gone nuclear. Republicans painted BlackRock as the face of woke capitalism, accusing Fink of pushing ideology over investor interests. Florida pulled $2 billion from BlackRock funds in protest, the largest anti-ESG divestment in history. Texas launched investigations into whether BlackRock's politics were hurting retirees. By now, the writing was on the wall. Faced with mounting pressure from both sides of the fence, Larry Fink executes a quiet but profound retreat. BlackRock began rolling back its boldest ESG initiatives with minimal publicity. In late 2023, BlackRock quietly exited the Net Zero Asset Managers initiative. Internally, the firm is slowly shifting its language. In BlackRock's public documents, explicit references to ESG and diversity initiatives are removed. The firm is quietly stepping back from the controversy without drawing attention.
Larry Fink doesn't even say ESG, right? I mean, that tells you that, that's not even me saying I told you so. It's really just saying, look, you can see what it's all about. It's PR.
But their actions speak even louder than words. In 2020, BlackRock supported almost half of ESG shareholder proposals. By 2024, its support had plunged to a mere 4%. Many critical climate proposals failed to pass due to BlackRock's withdrawn support. Larry Fink himself admitted publicly that he's ashamed of being part of the ESG conversation. He attempts to distance himself from a movement that has become too politically charged.
I think it's terribly dangerous when you have business leaders go out and they claim that they have values, and that they care about things, and they want to do the right thing. If they're found out later to be full of hot air, we're not just going to waste time. It's even worse. They're going to destroy the public's faith in the business.
However, Larry Fink is always looking ahead. The tide has shifted. The ESG hype train was over, and the profit potential has clearly waned. But when profits dry up, BlackRock doesn't stand around and wait. Quietly but decisively, they've moved on. ESG has become a distraction, and with passive ETFs reaching a saturation point, Larry Fink knew it was time for BlackRock's next strategic move. Something tangible, essential, and far more profitable than moral branding or abstract indexes. Something that affects every part of modern civilization, everywhere on the planet.
They appear to show Russian forces executing a group of Ukrainian soldiers who had just surrendered. See those bodies there. It comes as a ceasefire, appears to be even further away after Trump's 2-hour call with Vladimir Putin.
Amidst all this chaos, one name keeps popping up: BlackRock. Why is BlackRock, a Wall Street giant, so deeply involved in what's happening in Ukraine? Why do Larry Fink's fingerprints seem to be everywhere?
Well, who's interested in Ukraine? Now you have Larry Fink, who's the CEO of BlackRock, who is currently discussed as the likely individual whose organization, BlackRock, will rebuild Ukraine whenever the war ends. Gosh, that's interesting. Have you ever heard of anything like that in the history of the United States, where we went to war somewhere and we knew that when it ended, we knew exactly who the corporate head was who was going to lead the rebuilding effort, and we had set aside $1 trillion for the purpose? Hey, stop and think about that.
Only months into the war, Larry Fink had already personally struck the deal with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. placing BlackRock at the heart of Ukraine's post-war reconstruction. $8 billion already secured from global donors like the World Bank, all funneled into a new BlackRock-backed Ukraine Development Fund dedicated to rebuild the shattered nation once peace arrives. But why is a profit-driven Wall Street giant suddenly so eager to rebuild a war-torn country? Is BlackRock genuinely a Samaritan extending a helping hand? Or is there something darker beneath the surface? A strategy that exploits desperation to feed a much larger ambition? Truth is, this isn't really about Ukraine. This is part of BlackRock's grand master plan, a $68 trillion play to dominate the future of infrastructure.
When asset managers just invested in financial assets, what they did was actually pretty far removed from our daily lives, the daily lives of most individuals. But once asset managers are owning and controlling the houses in which we live, the roads on which we drive to work or pay tolls, hospitals in which we're being treated, the schools in which our children are going to school and so on, then they potentially have a far more significant and far more direct impact on the daily lives of large numbers of people than they did back in the day.
In simpler terms, when BlackRock only dominated the ETF market, their influence had clear limits. But now, with their eyes set on infrastructure, the stakes have never been higher, and their impact never greater. And Larry Fink is just getting started.
We believe infrastructure is only at the beginning of a real major asset class. There are some structural demands that are going to increase the issuance of more infrastructure.
Structural demands. This is just corporate speak. What Fink really needs is this. By 2040, the world needs $68 trillion in infrastructure investment, $2 trillion in ports alone, and BlackRock is setting itself up to secure as much as possible of this gigantic pie.
They want investments that are in the hundreds of millions of dollars at once, and that are long-term structural. So so clearly infrastructure fits within that.
Across the globe, infrastructure, roads, hospitals, water systems has traditionally been controlled by public institutions, but increasingly it's being handed over to for-profit giants like BlackRock. And for them, it's the ultimate prize.
It's not like you have a lot of competition for the one international airport at one major city in the region. Buy that and you have control of it. It's a monopoly. Similarly with water infrastructure, once you buy it, it's yours, right? And there's no way somebody's not going to open up a new water and sanitation system.
And the beauty for the owners is this: no matter how dramatically prices rise overnight for water, heating, electricity, or transportation, people have no alternative. Infrastructure delivers stable, long-term returns because people can't opt out. No one chooses where their water comes from or which canal ships their goods. You can't choose a different tap for your water or switch airports for your next flight. And nobody is building a second Panama Canal anytime soon. Whoever owns it has effectively secured a regional monopoly and gets to reap all the profits without having to worry about annoying competitors. A textbook example of what makes infrastructure investing so attractive. It's an invisible lifeline for everyday Americans. Any disruption to it, and prices for electronics, food, and fuel could skyrocket in no time. It's the world's most critical trade route, and now it's back under American control.
Alla behöver lite hjälp på vägen, särskilt barn och ungdomar. Därför stöttar Volkswagen BRIS i sitt arbete med barn inom bilen. Ju fler elbilar de säljer, desto mer pengar till BRIS.
Volkswagen. Tackar.
tack. Tack. Nämen.
Vad mer som bra? Om man ska välja mellan dotterns respekt och en utsökt god hollandaise, då blir det hollandaise.
Hi, I'm Luca. When I'm investing, I'm not alone. I look at Lena and then
The Panama Canal. In March 2025, a $23 billion deal is announced to place Panama Canal ports back under American control. And the Panama Canal deal is more than just symbolic. It's a massive milestone in BlackRock's quest to dominate global infrastructure. Because the deal is spearheaded not by Washington, it's led by Larry Fink, a man with close, long-standing ties to President Trump. If the deal goes through, Panama Canal's critical ports, Balboa and Cristobal, key global trade choke points, will soon sit firmly under BlackRock's control. But this isn't just about ships and ports. This is about who gets to own the bloodlines of modern civilization and the consequences of letting a private corporation this big take control. Let's say a municipality sells its water infrastructure to a firm like BlackRock. In return, it gets an upfront payment and a long-term service contract, often 20 or 30 years. And the new owners promise to take good care of the system. But here's the twist. Will the new owner really care if your water pipes corrode? Will they keep their promise to maintain the system or just happily collect dividends?
And obviously, regulators need to make sure that that the deals that they cut, where the private sector's involved, are fair to the public, right? That the public and the taxpayer isn't getting ripped off.
And what the asset managers learn too is that they get these really long-term contracts. They make all kinds of promises, and whether or not they deliver upon them or not is hardly irrelevant.
And there's no real incentive to do it.
What purpose, what reason could you have for enhancing or improving infrastructure when you're nearing the last 5 or 10 years, the 30-year contract? They just have little to no interest in actually maintaining essential infrastructure in the interest of that community. They have an interest only in that infrastructure to the extent that it matches their profitability expectations.
This isn't just theoretical, it's a global pattern.
I mean, from looking around at implications of 30 or 40 years of this tendency of selling off essential infrastructure and then it crumbling, and then the public sector having to either renationalize it or provide a bailout or preferential loans or allow the private provider to dramatically increase user fees. All of those are around the world.
The United Kingdom provides a well-known example where the public paid the price. Water privatization there has been a catastrophe. Not only is the water more expensive than in neighboring countries, it's more polluted because maintenance investments didn't happen. Profits always came first. But now that we've seen how infrastructure works, let's look at how BlackRock is executing its $68 trillion game plan.
Agriculture to AI, BlackRock owns everything and still keeps...
While it's the most popular claim about BlackRock, it's not entirely true yet. But in January 2024, they came one step closer to making it a reality.
U.S. investment giant BlackRock has agreed to buy Global Infrastructure Partners, or GIP, for about $12.5 billion. Now, the deal is the firm's largest acquisition since its 2009 purchase of Barclays Global Investors, putting the asset manager on a path to becoming the biggest provider of exchange-traded funds.
While the deal made some waves, only Larry Fink and a few select people could know that this deal was part of a much bigger game plan. The deal instantly catapulted BlackRock to one of the planet's largest infrastructure owners, directly controlling about $150 billion worth of critical global assets.
Any big deal, there's got to be an imperative behind it. From BlackRock's point of view, why do you need this deal?
Well, we know the corporate answer already. There are some structural demand for infrastructure, but this is the moment where you have to pause and think for a while. The more you think about it, the darker it gets. Structural demand, ongoing wars and global conflicts are leaving infrastructure around the world in ruins, creating enormous and enormously profitable rebuilding opportunity. As a former World Bank official who declined to be named puts it,
it will be big enough to take on the big restructuring projects that will emerge from the Ukraine and Gaza conflicts.
Regions torn apart by violence will urgently require airports, roads, bridges, and power grids rebuilt once guns go silent and peace returns. BlackRock's infrastructure bet is also precisely targeted toward those inevitable post-war investment opportunities. Right after the bombs fell in Ukraine, Larry Fink moved fast. Now, BlackRock is the gatekeeper of the entire post-war recovery. One of the biggest reconstruction efforts since World War II, and they are holding the keys. But Ukraine is just the beginning. It can be seen as a test case, laying the groundwork to prepare the firm for future large-scale reconstruction opportunities worldwide. With every new global conflict looming, reconstruction needs and thus profit opportunities are booming. Each area devastated by war creates another set of airports, bridges, railways, and digital networks to rebuild. Each is another catalyst for the $68 trillion infrastructure gold rush the firm is targeting. Larry Fink wants to make investing in infrastructure the next big thing, just as he did it with ETFs. But if that wasn't enough, the whole thing is getting even sweeter for him. Public money is helping BlackRock. This is what finance professionals call the catalytic capital strategy. It's the dream for any investor.
If we continue to give them public money to ensure that they have no risk and generate high returns, of course, they're going to love it. Why wouldn't they? I mean, it's the perfect scenario where they go and tell the government he wants to, invest in whatever that disaster or problem is in reconstruction. You just guarantee our returns. Wonderful. It's the ideal scenario.
BlackRock's goal is clear: encourage private capital to flow into war-torn regions, despite ongoing instability and risk. It seems like a win-win situation. While a destroyed country like Ukraine can expect a healthy influx of money once the war ends, BlackRock has enabled investors to profit from post-war rebuilding with limited risk. And some praise BlackRock for attracting much-needed investment into war-riddled countries in desperate need of capital, but others point to uncomfortable realities.
Do you think there's motive on others to have war because now they can raise money, come in and build infrastructure and make more? Do you think there's a profit as a motive to have this war and continue?
BlackRock profits indirectly, but significantly from ongoing global conflicts through massive holdings in defense companies already. Through its index funds and ETFs, BlackRock holds massive stakes in some of the world's largest arms manufacturers, talking billions in Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, or Raytheon, just to name a few. These firms directly profit from increased global tensions as wars drive demand for fighter jets, missiles, and bombs. Critics have accused BlackRock bluntly of making a killing on killing, profiting twice. First, through the weapons that feed wars, then again through lucrative reconstruction investments. BlackRock, of course, rejects the charge. They insist we don't pick winners, we just track the market. If defense firms show up in market tracking indexes, they're just along for the ride, and with only 5 to 7% stakes, they claim they've got no real say in how those companies operate. Yet, as BlackRock's prior aggressive stance on ESG proves, if BlackRock wants to take influence, they can most certainly take influence. And BlackRock's new role in infrastructure will enable them to potentially take more influence than ever before. The question remains how BlackRock will use this power.
We cannot deliver profit maximizing infrastructure and expect that to also respond to social equity concerns and universal access. They want this win-win situation where government, society, corporations will all win, right? But it's not. That's not what's happening. The only winners are those who are taking in profits.
While BlackRock's intentions remain debated, one larger truth stands clear. Larry Fink is building something unprecedented, a kind of everything store for investors. BlackRock now offers opportunities in every conceivable sector, from controversial defense and surveillance technology employed by authoritarian regimes to renewable energy pioneers or post-war reconstruction projects. Whether countries move toward peace or sink deeper into conflict, BlackRock's vast financial network is structured to profit either way. While some demand more regulation or greater accountability for the world's largest asset manager, at the end of the day, BlackRock is doing what they always did. They only respond to one thing and one thing only: the flow of money.
I don't think that they arranged the war, but they're definitely used its results, that's for sure.
If you like this video, you will probably like this video about first man in US history that was more powerful than the president.
Kan vi prata lite om livet? Det digitala livet. Snappen och chatten. Säkerhet.
Vad pratar du om?
Det digitala livet.
Välj din familj. Ett riktigt säkert abonnemang. Men en bra dialog är alltid det bästa sättet att skydda dina barn.
Stephen A. Cohen went from a small-time options trader to one of the most successful hedge fund managers of all time.
Steve Cohen is a legend on Wall Street. He's amassed one of the great American fortunes.
He founded SAC Capital and started generating some of the best returns out there.
His track record, his performance were amazing, and everybody wanted him.
But how did the king of hedge funds do it?
How does anybody make 60% a year? Well, the Fed's asking that right now.
Behind the multi-year federal investigation of insider trading at many Wall Street hedge funds.
The deal looks phenomenal.
There was a large network of insiders at a lot of these firms.
And the trail that led from traders.
Phone rings and says, Jeffries is going to upgrade Amazon in 6 minutes. 30 seconds later, I made about $500,000.
To information brokers.
They told me they were going to arrest everybody.
To SAC Capital.
Arrested fund managers. Doesn't matter who you are, rules are rules, and the law is the law.
Tonight on Frontline, to catch a trader.
Man frågar väl, för vilken ålder ska de få den stolen? Jag bara, det är väl fan upp till din själv. Idiot. Jag tror att jag ska skriva på stolen. Hur gammal ska man vara? Först så var det den där lilla som var liten i. Sen har man lite läxstora så blir det här. Och sen när man kroppen för tillräckligt lång så får det vara som sittandes. Det får du koka själv eller? He's not just someone special for me. He's known by the industry. More than 2 years experience. I can talk all day about him. Hallå.
Var du inte så att det var sånt på Cryptomainers?
I think that the internet
Eller eller hela vanliga allt.
reducing the role of government. Nej, inte direkt. Inte någonting så. Det blir inte mindre eller vad? Jag tror att det kommer bli så att många valutor kommer bytas ut så får man välja valuta själv.
Det vanliga då? Har det inte haft någonting där eller?
What is Bitcoin? What is Bitcoin? What backs a Bitcoin? You put some of your money.
Jag tror att hela tiden. challenger to Bitcoin. I don't even know why we call them coins, except that they call them coins to me.
I think Bitcoin has turned into a massive multiplayer online game where speculators are trying to outspend it.
On 2009, January 3rd, evening 6:15, on that day, a big thing happened. The Bitcoin transaction blew up. The 5 elements on that day disappeared. But that is the launch of water on that day.
This is not just the story of a chip company. It's the story of how one man, an unknown quiet immigrant, built the most powerful tech empire on Earth. And how he's now helping build machines that might outthink us. Gaming. AI.
Är det det eller?
Nej.
Det är skitlätt. Du försöker inte somna. Och de som om.
In 1993, 3 men sat in a booth and sketched a dream on the back of a napkin. Their plan? To build a new kind of chip, one that could simulate reality in real time. They had no name, no product, no money. Jensen Huang, the son of immigrants, now betting everything on a fantasy chip no one asked for. When he mortgaged his house, his friends thought he was crazy.
Där är det som
Huang
fanns.
believed something no one else did. That GPUs could do more.
Snabb gratis hemleverans och oändlig underhållning på Amazon.se med Amazon Prime för 69 kronor i månaden.
Technology moves fast, but behind every revolution, there's a mind, a spark, a risk, a voice with vision. Today, we're counting down the top 10 most influential figures in technology, the architects of the modern world, and the dreamers of what's next. From building the backbone of the web to pushing boundaries in AI, biotech, and quantum computing, these 10 individuals aren't just shaping our future, they're building it in real time. But this isn't just about CEOs or coders. It's about people who took ideas and scaled them to planetary impact. So grab your curiosity, power up your brain, and let's dive into the 10 most mind-bending tech influencers ever. At number 10, we begin not with code, but with conscience. Meet Dr. Fei Li, the Stanford professor and computer scientist who redefined the soul of artificial intelligence. While others raced to build smarter machines, Fei asked a different question. Can we make AI more human? She led the creation of ImageNet, a database of 14 million labeled images that became the launchpad for the deep learning revolution. Before ImageNet, AI struggled to identify a cat from a toaster. After ImageNet, machines began to see like humans. And that's not a metaphor. It's how we got self-driving cars, medical AI, and facial recognition. But Fei didn't stop there. As AI took off, she grew concerned. What if we build powerful systems with no ethics? In response, she co-founded the Stanford Institute for Human-Centered AI, a group working to make sure AI respects human values. Today, she's one of the most cited and respected voices in all of AI, and her influence ensures that humanity stays in the AI equation. Number 9. At just 19 years old, a young Russian-Canadian programmer named Vitalik Buterin changed the very idea of what the internet could be. The year was 2013. Bitcoin was all the rage, but Vitalik saw a bigger vision, a platform not just for digital money, but programmable contracts and decentralized apps that could run without a middleman. He wrote a white paper that would become Ethereum, a sprawling, open-source blockchain network, sometimes called the world's world computer. But this story is not just about code. Raised by mathematicians, he was a prodigy, skipping grades, devouring books on cryptography, game theory, and philosophy. At one point, Vitalik sold his Bitcoin to fund the launch of Ethereum, betting everything on his dream. That gamble paid off. Today, Ethereum powers thousands of decentralized projects, from finance to art, disrupting industries and sparking debates on trust, freedom, and governance. But here's the twist. Vitalik is a really shy guy. He prefers quiet talks and whiteboard sessions over social media drama. Yet his ideas echo louder than most megafunds in tech. Number 8 is Sundar Pichai, CEO of Google and Alphabet, one of the most quietly powerful leaders in the digital age. Born in India, raised on stories of perseverance, Sundar grew up fascinated by technology and how it could democratize knowledge. In 2004, he joined Google as a product manager and quickly made a mark leading Chrome, which became the world's most popular browser. But Sundar's real genius? He transformed Google's sprawling empire, that is search.
Det bare å ta godt imot Torbjørn Bøll Jensen, administrerende direktør I K33. Velkommen til oss.
Takk. Hyggelig å være her. Selv om det var ingen denne gangen.
Noen ganger så må man gjøre sånn, vet du. Vi jo nå på slutten av det som man har kalt Crypto Week, der USA skulle stemme over 3 lovforslag tilknyttet kryptovaluta. Dette ble vel gått gjennom huset I går. Kan ikke du først og fremst, før vi går inn I de forskjellige lovforslagene, fortelle litt om akkurat hva slags betydning dette har for kryptovaluta eller bitcoin som en helhet?
Så dette ekstremt positivt for bitcoin og kryptovaluta. Under Biden-administrasjonen så jobbet man aktivt mot kryptovaluta. Man prøvde å stoppe det, man prøvde å hindre banker fra å være en del av sektoren. Du hadde SSI, de som regulerer verdipapirer, som stakk masse kjepper I hjulene for ulike prosjekter. Mens nå under Trump så det tydelig at det ikke bare var valgflex, at han ville gjøre USA til en kryptonasjon. Dette det som nå reflekteres I de 3 lovforslagene, og det tydelig at USA gjennom hele det politiske systemet nå egentlig omfavner flere av de ulike delene av kryptosektoren, og ønsker å putte USA I en førerrolle innenfor denne sektoren.
Jeg kan fortelle om disse ulike lovforslagene, for det 3 stykker. Det Genius Act, og så det Clarity Act og Anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act.
Yes, så Clarity, det ligger litt I navnet, skal gjøre det klarere regulatorisk og skille mellom hvilke kryptotokens som faller inn under verdipapirregulering og dermed under SSI, og hvilke som skal håndteres som en form for digital råvare, og derfor skal reguleres av CFTC, de som regulerer råvarer. Og det har vært en stor diskusjon I USA, der SSI tidligere har tolket nesten alt bortsett fra bitcoin til å være en form for verdipapirer, og dermed vært veldig strenge og rigide på hva som lov av handel. Her blir det da I praksis både en tydeliggjøring, men også en oppmykning som gjør at en rekke andre prosjekter, og spesielt de som tilstrekkelig desentraliserte, vil falle under råvareregulering og dermed CFTC. Så har du Genius Act, som en regulering av stablecoins. Disse e-pengene, typisk dollar, som utstedt på blokkjeden beveger seg, som bitcoin og andre kryptovalutaer, men hvor det bankinnskudd og statsgjeld som ligger bak og garanterer verdiene, som gjør at man kan holde en dollarverdi. Og det spennende her at USA nå aktivt omfavner stablecoins som en måte å sikre dollarens fortsatt viktige rolle I verden. Og sammen med anti-CBDC-effekt, altså CBDC jo digitalt sentralbankpenge, så det ganske interessant å se hvilken tilnærming USA har. For de prøver nå å forby staten til å utstede en digital dollar, samtidig som de legger til rette for at privat sektor skal ta seg av dette gjennom stablecoins. Dette skiller seg veldig tydelig fra for eksempel EU, hvor man har et mye større ønske om å utstede en digital euro, ta mer kontroll, og dermed også kunne drive mer finansiell overvåkning. For Bitcoin så anti-CBDC-forslaget viktig, både fordi det innskrenker på hva staten kan gjøre her, men det også tydeliggjør da hvilken rolle Bitcoin kan spille, og det at staten ikke skal komme direkte i konkurranse, og at det kan på en måte bli den eneste reelt desentraliserte alternativet.
Men vi har jo hatt stablecoins før. Tether har man jo hatt, og problemet der har jo vært at man ikke har kunnet revidere, man har ikke kunnet verifisere at det har vært $1 bak hver eneste enhet som har stått der, og det gir jo mye bedre gjennomsiktighet også når stablecoins blir regulert, og det skal revideres i Genius Act. Altså, kan man si at stablecoins som en gavekort på digitale valutaer, at man kan veksle det om i hvilken som helst type vare i mange forskjellige kryptoer, eller er det bare til bitcoin og at man kan veksle den stablecoin inn til?
Nei, så det vi ser nå er at stablecoins som en bankinnskudd 2.0 begynner å brukes langt utenfor kryptosektoren. I K33 er vi kunder som opererer innenfor helt andre bransjer, som ikke driver med noe kjøp og salg av kryptovaluta, men som veksler til og fra stablecoins og vanlig bankinnskudd hos oss, fordi stablecoins kan gi dem raskere, billigere oppgjør, og spesielt på tvers av landegrenser. Tether er jo den soleklart største av disse stablecoinsene internasjonalt. Og ganske interessant så har da selvfølgelig Tether hatt en litt rufsete historie, men de er jo også så store at de var den 7. største kjøperen av amerikansk statsgjeld i fjor. Det betyr at stablecoins, og da spesielt Tethers, er viktig for USAs evne til å finansiere underskuddene sine. Jo større stablecoins blir, jo mer kjøpere har du av amerikansk statsgjeld, som er det som backer verdiene her.
Det er jo snakk om at opp til $2 trillion av statsgjelden skal kunne finansieres på dette her, så det er jo en måte da å bringe penger inn fra mørke kroker til å finansiere staten i USA. Det skal de jo ikke.
Ja, det er ikke nødvendigvis mørke kroker, det er jo helt sikkert mørke kroker også. Men fordi stablecoins er sentraliserte, så kan de også gjøre samarbeide med myndighetsorgan, gjøre beslag. Når det har vært hacking av midler, og det har blitt stjålet og beviselig sånn, så har Tether kunnet reversere de transaksjonene. Og for meg så virker det ganske åpenbart at Tether og de andre stablecoin-utstederne samarbeider med en rekke amerikanske trebokstavs-agencies og deler intel. Det er vel få som har så godt innsyn, og så mulighet til å monitorere, og nettopp fordi blokkjedeadressen også gir sporbarhet, som stablecoin-utstederne.
Men vil dette markedet bli 1 eller 2, eller det vil bli 2-3 aktører som nominerer dette her for å konkurrere om de største stablecoin som er den eneste og har beste revisorer for å tiltrekke seg butikken her?
Fråga hur mycket det kostar, ska jag bara säga att jag har ett bud på ett hit och 2 eller?
Det er det som er store spørsmål akkurat nå, fordi det Genius Act gjør er at det egentlig
Han har ikke tilbake og ikke bedre.
heller ikke fått til dette i storskala, sammen med Circle, med USDC, det er ikke de to, men Tether er solklart størst. Akkurat egentlig kult å komme inn med sine versjoner, men Genius Act gjør jo nå at alle de større bankene vurderer å utstede sine egne stablecoins. Og historisk så har banken utstedt egne sedler og mynter, og de har kunnet vekslingskurser mellom hverandre. Det var ikke ut fra en sånn banksituasjon at man fikk framvekst av en sentralbank som modifiserte retten til å utstede sedler og mynt. Og nå får du på en måte en repetisjon av dette i digital form. Så jeg tror vi kommer til å få en fase nå med mange konkurrerende stablecoins. Jeg tror nok at vi kommer til å fortsette å se at det kommer til å være noen få som blir dominante. Noen kommer til å prøve å være ultra-reviderte, ultra-konservative, ultra-sikre, men det er ikke gitt at det er det markedet faktisk etterspør. Tether har vært kritisert hele veien og har bruk for backingen, men likevel så er det Tether som har levert best verdi til sluttbruker, og derfor er det som har blitt brukt mest til nå.
Du har selvfølgelig snakket om utviklingen for bitcoin og her, hvordan det steget til en ny toppnotering på mandag har over $122,000 i hver mynt. Hva driver kursen i bitcoin nå for deg? mange andre bakenforliggende faktorer også.
Absolutt, og lovforslagene I seg selv I isolasjon ikke så veldig kursdrivende. Men det de representerer, som den helomvendingen USA har tatt med å omfavne sektoren, det det som driver det. Og det spennende man ser nå at Bitcoin på cirka all time high, og det ingen eufori å spore. Bitcoin har aldri hatt så lite belåning, så lite småspareraktivitet, og har likevel vært på all time high som nå. Så dette den første gang I Bitcoins historie. Så spørsmålet da, hvem det som kjøper Bitcoin, hvorfor kursen gått opp? Og det I stor grad institusjonelle investorer. Du har selvfølgelig disse børsnoterte Bitcoin-selskapene som har kjøpt mye, men det også stadig flere fond, tyngre investorer som tar en stadig større allokering til Bitcoin. Og der den legitimeringen som kommer fra den politiske og regulatoriske omtannelsen ekstremt viktig for å kunne slippe inn de store pengesekkene.
Men det klart det jo spennende dette her, og alt som spennende det jo attraktivt. Men hva koster det å produsere og holde Bitcoin-nettverk oppe per år? Det jo enormt energiforbruk. Hva kostnadene, og hva liksom verdien på Bitcoin I forhold til årlige kostnader å holde dette nettverket oppe? Jeg ser de opererer med liksom kostnader for å produsere Bitcoin som ligger under kostnaden ved å kjøpe Bitcoin. Det greit, men hva liksom totalkostnaden oppi der? Har du sett opp på det?
Bitcoins produksjonsrate, den eksogen gitt. Det hver 4 år svart, og det ikke noen produksjonskostnader som styrer. Så har du kostnaden av å sikre nettverket. Det den strømmen minere bruker. Og den påvirkes av 2 faktorer. Det ene hvor mye transaksjoner som bruker nettverket. Og det hvor mye belønninger I form av nye bitcoin verdt. Ettersom bitcoin stiger, så øker insentivet for å bruke strøm for å sikre nettverket, fordi belønninger I form av nye bitcoin.
Nesquik-figurén Choco Crunchy till sista biten.
You get super stable broadband.
Ultra flexible TV packages. Insanely fast 5G. You got zero and we are talking.
Använder en shoulder så inte mer. Inte mer.
Let's say you want to buy or sell Cardano. Just open the eToro app. Click Discover, choose your crypto, and click Trade. Send the amount.
Open air. Men fordi produktet 4. år, så blir det også en motvirkende effekt her. Så jeg har ikke nøyaktig si tallet for årlig belønning til minere eller det totale strømforbruket. Men over tid insentivet stadig av nygenererte bitcoin og kun drevet av transaksjonsavgifter, altså hvor mye nettverket brukes. Og det en brøkdel, altså en liten del relativt til de totale verdiene som holdes.
Litt tekniske problemer her nå, så vi får se om det bedrer seg.
Det energiforbruk på linje med hele koden da, men det klart når verdien nå har blitt 3 trillioner dollar, så det klart at det forsvarer det litt også da, men det viktig at verdien holder seg oppe. Men når det
Og så det skyten der, fordi når man sier energiforbruk like mye som hele koden, så ser man for seg at dette strømmen til koden, men sannheten at den energien som det begynner. Det kun kraften som fanget på flaskehalser, som ikke har noen alternativ anvendelse, som konkurransedyktig å bruke på å sikre Bitcoin-nettverket. Så all energi ikke lik.
Nei, det riktig. Men hvordan Italia for disse nye stablecoinsene tar over og blir større enn dette, tror du? Hvordan Italia for Genius Act vil komme I kraft?
Genius Act blir nok I kraft med full effekt fra neste år. De store bankene forbereder seg allerede nå. Så det et åpent spørsmål om de noensinne vil ta over. Jeg skal ikke glemme at dette var et av verdens største og I hvert fall mest lønnsomme finansforetak I fjor. Og alt ligger etter at kanskje de sammen med enkelte andre nye kryptoaktører, kan bli finanskjempene i fremtiden. Og det, for å trekke det også litt til disse Bitcoin Treasury-strategiselskapene, de som virkelig lykkes der, som bygger en stor balanse i Bitcoin, det kan fort bli de som blir de store finanshusene i 10 årene fremover. Så jeg tror vi står overfor et paradigmeskifte. Det kommer til å være aktører fra den etablerte finansmarkedet som kommer til å fortsette å være store, mens andre kommer til å over evne og slite med denne overgangen. Dette har vi sett opp gjennom historien. Innovasjon skaper for nye aktører som har kommet.
Ja, men det må være effektivt. Det må være kostnadseffektivt for at det skal kunne ta markedsandeler. Og jeg lurer på om at Genius-Act er en måte å sørge for at den data som har løftet Bitcoin dit det der er, at den kommer under kontroll. Men vi får se hvordan det utvikler seg.
Jeg vil si at hvis man har prøvd å bruke bank, så er det ikke noe tvil om, og man har prøvd å bruke kryptovaluta, så er det ikke noe tvil om hvor effektiviteten ligger. Det er jo mye lettere å bruke kryptovaluta og stablecoins. Bank er jo mareritt i forhold.
Ja, det er klart, hvis du har usage da, Bitcoin er fantastisk å flytte fra Russland eller fra Iran og skal komme ut av landet. Så det er jo use case, men til vanlig handel så er det bedre å bruke penger.
Ja, men til på butikken så følger det veldig mye med et kredittkort. Men prøv å sende penger over landegrenser. Altså selv bare å sende penger fra Sverige til Norge. Det kan være masse hodebry og forsinkelser fra beløpsgrenser. Du må sende notarisk publikumssignatur for å få det å få kryssende beløpsgrenser som er litt satt hver dag. Altså, alt er antikvert. Det er teknisk tilbakestående og kommer til å møte en kjempekonkurranse, nå spesielt fra stablecoins, som både har da stabiliteten til dollar, men fleksibiliteten til åpne blokkjeder som Bitcoin har. Og det nevnte jo selvfølgelig det å flytte fra land og ta med seg Bitcoin. Men en annen ting folk flykter fra er jo også inflasjon og gjeldsoverheng. Amerikansk statsgjeld er ikke akkurat bærekraftig, og USA er ikke alene.
Hvis du vil ta dere tog til Tyskland? Hur långt tid det tar att åka tåg till Tyskland? 17 timmar. 17 timmar. Jag är inte här just nu, men den går hela vägen ner från Stockholm och det behöver man ju inte ta. De måste ju gå till Jönköping, så det är lite där nere. Va? De får ta längre till. Buss 20 timmar, men det är också från Stockholm, så det beror säkert inte här. Jag ska bara på biljetter ner. Jag vet inte om det går bra för det. Va? Ja.
Nej, jag menar på båt.
Jaha, du menar så. Ja, jag säger det var väl det här.
Til å allokere til Bitcoin og styrke den amerikanske strategiske Bitcoin-reserven på en budsjettnøytral måte. Så det kan bli å se, men oppskrivning av det gullet kan fort resultere i Bitcoin-kjøp.
Ja, jeg forstår. Det er spennende tider, og menneskerettighet er jo spenning. Det er jo sånn når rommet ikke kunder for noen måte fra banen, og jeg får litt sånn følelsen her også at det er jo zero day options, altså nulldagsfunksjoner og camping som er i hele børsen, det er som et kasino. Det bruker ikke vare så lenge, og det var den klassekaka, omvendte klassekaka som er vist her, den gilder på veldig tynt grunnlag, og den kan løfte veldig fort hvis at man mister kontrollen av kreditten og mister kontrollen av inflasjonen, så sier det stopp.
Det er kanskje altså det du så det bildet på, det var jo Bitcoin og gult litt under. Ja, og det som skjer er at den store pyramiden ja, det er også den lille pyramiden nederst blir det store.
Ja, det er
Vad vill man åka? Är det München eller Berlin här?
Ja, det er ingen tvil om. Men de kommer ikke til å redusere gjelden ved å betale tilbake. Så det kommer med inflasjon. Men man tenker da at det må reduseres. Det får konkurser som i 2008.
Jag börjar bara kolla ungefär ett hemdatum ut alltså.
Nå har vi faktisk sett opp veldig mye om statsgjelden her i USA, og så var det dette tollbyttet som nyheter med nye tallsatser som blir sendt ut nesten daglig. Hvordan ser kryptovaluta eller bitcoin ut i det bildet?
Vill du gå bakåt bara?
Dobbeleffekt. Du ser to motstridende effekter på.
Ja.
Det jo selvfølgelig at bitcoin, når det uro i markedet og frykt, så faller ofte bitcoin sammen med markedet, I hvert fall på kort sikt. Men det at USA har vist...
Ska ju vara alla färger från Sverige.
Jag kollade här, men det är jobbigt.
Från Sverige, sa du?
Jo, men jag kollar ju på olika sidor.
Ja, men kolla. Alltså, du får upp alla rutor som Sverige gör.
Det
var lite olika hur de åker och vad de kostar. Om man hade tagit kastet smidigt så är ju flygbiljett nästan billigt. Korta sidor som man det kan kosta favorit.
Nå har man jo sittet og ventet på denne Crypto-week som nå mer eller mindre over, men også har disse 3 lovforslagene gått gjennom representantenes hus. Hva neste milepæl eller hendelse I dette markedet som man nå sitter og ser frem mot, som eventuelt kan være kursdrivende?
9 gånger på ett år.
Spørsmålet jo egentlig akkurat nå, så det det institusjonelle underliggende som det viktigste. Jeg tror vi kan komme til å nå 200 000 innen
du skulle ville åke ut da?
Alt peker fortsatt I det kjent I dag. Det ganske konkrete milepæler. Altså, 2 av disse lovforslagene skal da gjennom senatet, og det kommer sikkert å ta litt tid, mens Genius Act nå venter på signatur fra presidenten. Men jeg tror ikke de neste fasene der kommer til å være noen store triggere. Så jeg tror nok mest egentlig det å følge med på hvilke institusjoner som kommer inn. En annen spennende endring I USA vært at det nå kan banker gjøre custody av bitcoin. Federal Reserve har gjort det veldig tydelig. Og jeg tror nok det kommer til å være mange nyheter fra tradisjonell finans egentlig verden over, hvor store finansinstitusjoner omfavner bitcoin I stadig større grad. For det det som kommer til å være drivende I tiden fremover. Så har vi selvfølgelig disse Bitcoin Treasury-selskapene som ligger som noen joker og akselerator oppi dette her, men som kan utover høsten potensielt bygge seg opp til å kunne bli en boble og skape sårbarhet, så det er viktig å følge med på.
Når det gjelder custody, favoriserer de I loven Coinbase foran Robinhood? Er det sånn når det gjelder custody for bitcoin I USA?
Gjør det ikke custody selv, de avhengig av andre aktører. Så jeg har ikke sett på noen hvilke aktører som favoriseres eller ikke.
Du måtte åpne I Coinbase for å få det, men det klart at det kan forandres.
Ja, men altså, det man har I hvert fall sett generelt, så vil de jo holde USA som
Ikke skjønner du på fører?
Favorisere nasjonale
Vilken
den här
Ray eller Pooh?
Nej, den andra.
Kan.
Vet du det?
Kan.
Ja.
Men det är inte andra något.
Sånn at vi kommer til å se mye sånn geopolitisk spilling hvor disse regulatoriske rammeverkene det jo en oppfri makt som spillomerte kryptoaktørene som da prøver å styrke sin posisjon og gjøre seg selv viktigere gjennom regulatoriske. Men akkurat det du refererte her, så er det
Det som antydet här desto mer man diskuterar, desto mer det är klart det är ju intressant hvis man ska tala världen så vill man sätta ursäkt I bitcoin om man inte får då blir det vidare som man sätter det är det bitcoin som styr världen det är man så det
sentrala valuta utnytter.
Ja.
Jeg tror vi må runde av her. Tusen takk for at du tok tid til å stille opp. Torbjørn Borgensen, administrerende direktør I K33.
Och då så är det klicka in på webbsajten och så kommentera. Det ser oss på här.
Jag tappar. Kolla vad jag måste pinkla i kartonger. Borde inte för ego. Ser den? Jag ska lägga upp den.
It will be interesting to see what impacts the Republicans from Donald Trump
So he did the worst thing he could possibly do in the middle of a scandal that he was hoping to disappear. He wrote a long social media post about the scandal, about the Epstein files. Donald Trump gave the story much more fuel today. He kept doing it all day, which is exactly the opposite of what a smart person would do in Donald Trump's position. And once again, Donald Trump distinguished himself as the Bulgarian that is in the presidency by using profanity in his written public posting. And for some reason, putting the profane word in quotation marks, that weird way Donald Trump randomly and incorrectly uses quotation marks. And I mention that because if any other president had ever used that word in writing in public or verbally in public, the news media would rightfully explode with the use of that word and the collapse of presidential authority. But this is the Trump era, and every standard of decency and accountability has been lowered for Donald Trump and Donald Trump alone. Donald Trump has a long post this morning to blame the scandal of the Epstein files on the Democrats, saying, quote, their new scam is what we will forever call the Jeffrey Epstein hoax, and my past supporters have brought into this bull crap. Hook, line, and sinker, they haven't learned their lesson, probably never will, even after being conned by the lunatic. Yes, they haven't been conned by the lunatic for many years now, but Donald Trump wasn't actually referring to himself when he said that. It was just my heartfelt edit that let it sound better. What he actually said was, even after being conned by the lunatic left. Donald Trump ended that social media rant against Republicans, saying all these people want to talk about is strong party by the fake news and the success-starved Dems is the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. Let these weaklings continue forward and do the Democrats' work. Don't even think about talking our incredible unprecedented success, because I don't want their support anymore. Weaklings. Donald Trump is calling Republicans stupid weaklings. And as of today, he doesn't have the support of the people he calls stupid weaklings. But it will take some time to know if Trump's loss of their support is done by calling them stupid and weaklings. Probably won't help.
Started by Democrats. It's been run by the Democrats for 4 years. You had Christopher Wray and these characters and Comey before. And it's a bad group. It started actually with the Steele dossier that turned out to be a total hoax. The 51 agents, the intelligence, so-called intelligence agents that was opposed. It's all been a big hoax. It's perpetrated by the Democrats. And some stupid Republicans and foolish Republicans fall into the net. And they even have
of stupid Republicans and foolish Republicans. And he kept going.
Stefan Martin.
Let's say you want to buy or sell a printer. Just open the eToro app, click Discover, choose your printer, then click Trade, set the amount, and hit Buy, and you're done. So, printer, try buy and sell it the eToro way.
They said they want to talk about the Epstein hoax. And the sad part is people that are really doing the Democrats' work. They're stupid people.
They're stupid people. Let's talk about it. And no, the sad part is not that we're talking about the Epstein files. The sad part is what happened to those Republicans. Donald Trump's friend, Jeffrey Epstein. President got his hands on that. Michael Flynn served 24 days as Donald Trump's first national security advisor before being fired by Donald Trump and then convicted of the crimes for which Donald Trump, of course, pardoned him today. Michael Flynn wrote this on social media addressed directly to Donald Trump. I hesitated to write this, however, with the utmost respect and deference to you for all who stood fundamentally better than me, what the deep state would do when they want to turn on a person. The Epstein affair is not about who killed him or if he committed suicide personally. I'm glad this pedophile is dead, but neither is this a hoax. This issue goes beyond all that. There are millions of Americans who overwhelmingly voted for you to be our president, and we want you to be massively successful. No one more than me. All we want at this stage is for a modicum of trust to be reestablished between our federal government and the people that is designed to serve that small degree exclamation point. An element that is of great importance surrounding this Epstein affair is the fact that this man was a known pedophile and a list of clients who represented the upper crust of society who likely did untoward things to children on his island, in his homes in New York City, and the rest, and maybe elsewhere. He was convicted of it, regardless of what class of society he uses and commits crimes against children. It is never acceptable. This is where this great mental offer goes. It is not about Epstein or the left. It is about committing crimes against children. If there are groups inside of our country that have committed crimes against children, shame on them. They must be held accountable. The standard of Trump-supporting media today is not supportive of Trump and Epstein files. Alex Jones spoke directly and hysterically to Donald Trump on his Twitter.
You have put the gun in your mouth and ours collectively. Stop it. Stop it. Stop. 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 For God's sakes, don't attack your constituents when they have morals and aren't robots.
Jeffrey Epstein killed himself before trial, but his co-defendant and co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, went to trial in 2021. She did not testify. The prosecution called 24 witnesses over 10 days to testify for Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's victims. At the time, the Associated Press reported, quote, the first three women testified as Jane, Kate, and Carolyn. First names are pseudonyms intended to protect their privacy. The last was Annie Farmer. This name was her real name. Jane said she was 14 when she met Maxwell and Epstein at a music camp where Epstein was a benefactor. Maxwell showered her with attention in a way that left her vulnerable the moment she was first instructed to follow Epstein into his schoolhouse in his Palm Beach, Florida estate. 1994, she said. When he began to sexually abuse her, I was frozen in fear, she said. I'd never seen a penis before. Prosecutors wanted evidence that Maxwell was a direct participant. Jane gave it to them by claiming Maxwell and Epstein followed her together. A prosecutor asked her why. As the defense pointed out, she didn't initially reveal everything but her experiences with Epstein in her initial dealings with law enforcement. She said, fighting back tears because it was too difficult emotionally, too difficult vulnerability. 14 years old. That's what Donald Trump and his Attorney General are hiding. 14 years old. The investigative files are a man who Donald Trump said he knew for 15 years, a man who said he was Donald Trump's closest friend for 10 years, and who raped that child when she was 14 years old. They are protecting that man final day of the Trump presidency, and today, they released a statement praising Donald Trump. One of his life Maxwell's lawyers said this about Donald Trump: he's the ultimate deal maker. I'm sure you agree. While the United States gives its word, it should keep it. For all the talk about him being prosecuted in prison, it's especially unfair that just like Maxwell remains in prison.
That's pretty sort of amazing on stage. It's something. Okay, I love this. That's not that fun.
And to deepen the mysteries that live in and around the Epstein files, new reporting indicates that there was a gap of 3 full minutes on the video recording of the door of Jeffrey Epstein's jail cell on the night that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. The 1 minute gap had been previously recorded in that video, but new analysis by Wire indicates the actual gap is a full 3 minutes. That's one of the many elements in the case that indicate that there remains much to investigate in this case. It's a case that never went to trial, and some contents of those investigative files of Jeffrey Epstein were never fully revealed in court as they were destined to be not by his choice. The Democrats, House Judiciary Committee, Just Jurisdiction, Justice Department, and Attorney General want to conduct that investigation of this case. Here is the top Democrat on that committee, Dr. Jerry Grassley, with yesterday's Judiciary Committee.
There's something that everybody here, at least I used to think, agreed with, which is let's release the Epstein files. That guy is a child sex offender who's convicted of it and then took his life before the larger trial could take place. His associate, Ms. Maxwell, was in jail for 20 years. The whole country is saying, release the files. That's what Donald Trump said. That's what J.D. Vance said. That's what the Attorney General said. That's what FBI Director said. And now suddenly they want to sweep the whole thing under the rug. Why don't we have a real hearing with real government officials talking about the government and talking about a real investigation with a real problem, which is the nationwide crisis in the sexual abuse of children and human trafficking? Why don't we do that and go back to Mr. Trump?
Well, as the world now knows, the breaking news of the night is that Donald Trump is sinking deeper and deeper into the Jeffrey Epstein scandal, with reporting from the Wall Street Journal tonight describing a birthday letter to Jeffrey Epstein on the occasion of Jeffrey Epstein's 50th birthday. Wall Street Journal says the letter bears Trump's name. And that letter's final line says, "Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret." And Donald Trump's latest panic response to what is now a fully out of control situation for the Trump administration is a post on social media within the last hour saying, "I have asked Attorney General Pamplani to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony subject to court approval." It is entirely possible that the court will not approve the release of any of the grand jury testimony in the case because Jeffrey Epstein's co-defendant and convicted co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, is still an active litigant in the case appealing her conviction, and the grand jury testimony was used in the prosecution of Ghislaine Maxwell. If she's successful in that appeal, she could have a retrial that could include some of that grand jury material. The judge might want to protect all of that. And the Epstein files that people want to see, that Trump supporters have demanded to see for years, include much, much more than grand jury testimony. It includes FBI reports, FBI notes, prosecutors' notes, endless streams of paper far beyond just grand jury transcripts. And the Attorney General knows that. And that's why Pamplani responded to Donald Trump on social media saying, quote, "President Trump, we are ready to move the court tomorrow to unseal the grand jury transcripts." And that won't do it. That will not quiet the revolt in Trump world of this.
Let's say you want to buy or sell Bitcoin. Just open the eToro app. Click Discover, choose your crypto, and click Trade. Set the amount, and hit Buy. And you're done. So, Bitcoin, try, buy, and sell it the eToro way. Start today.
This would be publication, that story, by the Wall Street Journal. Donald Trump has now sunk to the lowest point in his presidency because this story, and only this story, has separated Donald Trump from some of his most fervent and frenzied supporters of the past who are now in a frenzy of outrage about Donald Trump blocking the release of the Epstein files, which, according to the Wall Street Journal, contain that birthday message bearing Trump's name to Jeffrey Epstein. In 2003, Jeffrey Epstein was, according to criminal evidence developed years later, routinely raping children, especially 14-year-old girls, which was apparently the target age for Jeffrey Epstein in the selection of his victims. That's when this letter was addressed to a child rapist bearing Donald Trump's name. It said, "Happy birthday," and may every day be another wonderful secret. In the middle of what we now know was Jeffrey Epstein's dedicated pursuit of child rape victims. That was Jeffrey Epstein's biggest secret at the time. We don't know what the secret the letter is referring to. We don't know if Donald Trump knew that Jeffrey Epstein was an unrelenting, predatory child rapist at the time that Donald Trump was friendly with Jeffrey Epstein, to the point that Jeffrey Epstein described Donald Trump then as his closest friend. You know how much trouble a politician is in when stories like this break? Not that there's ever been a story like this, but when scandals break, you know how much trouble politicians have by the reactions to the story. There are several people mentioned in the Wall Street Journal report. Donald Trump was just one of them. Other people mentioned in that report include Jeffrey Epstein's former lawyer, Alan Dershowitz, Jeffrey Epstein's largest financial benefactor, billionaire Leslie Wexner. No one mentioned in the Wall Street Journal report tonight disputes anything in the report except Donald Trump. There is a letter in that same collection of birthday letters from Alan Dershowitz and another one from Leslie Wexner. When reached by the Wall Street Journal, Alan Dershowitz said, quote, "It's texts them a long time, and I don't recall the content of what I may have written. Billionaire Wesley Wexner. Quote, declined to comment through a spokesman, so no dispute from them about the reporting on them and their birthday letters to Jeffrey Epstein, reporting by the Wall Street Journal tonight. The Wall Street Journal reports about the documents which NBC News has not verified. Ghislaine Maxwell collected letters from Trump and dozens of Epstein's other associates for a 2003 birthday album, according to documents reviewed by the Wall Street Journal. Pages from the leather-bound album assembled before Epstein was first arrested in 2006 are among the documents examined by Justice Department officials who investigated Epstein and Maxwell years ago, according to people who have reviewed the pages. It's unclear if any of the pages are part of the Trump administration's recent review. The Justice Department, run by Donald Trump's Attorney General, has control of the entirety of the Epstein files, including the Epstein birthday material quoted by the Wall Street Journal. The Justice Department officials didn't respond to requests for comment or address questions about whether the Trump page and other pages in the birthday album were part of the agency's recent documents review. The FBI declined to comment. So the Justice Department does not dispute one word of the Wall Street Journal reporting tonight. The FBI does not dispute one word of the Wall Street Journal reporting tonight. Not one word. In Alan Dershowitz's birthday letter to Jeffrey Epstein, he made a joke about Bill Clinton. The Wall Street Journal report tonight says, quote, Trump, along with others, including Clinton, also appeared several times on flight logs for Epstein's private jet. A spokesman for Clinton referred to a 2019 statement that former President Clinton had cut off ties more than a decade before Epstein's second arrest and didn't know about Epstein's alleged crimes. So Bill Clinton, another person mentioned in the Wall Street Journal tonight, does not dispute that word of the Wall Street Journal report.
Det här är för båda personerna. Och man tar inte säng när man ska vara där 5 timmar på båten. Då är man ju vaken. Vi behöver inte så säkert.
Jag vet att det var bilpris på min också.
Och sen är de andra avgångarna går härifrån antar jag. För det är från Trelleborg till Rostock då. Och sen fanns det... jag vet inte vad Rostock ligger. Eller Trelleborg vet jag inte vad det ligger. Sen de andra... här är de andra. Jag ska ta
The letter bearing Trump's name, which was reviewed by the journal, is long, like others in the album. It contains several lines of typewritten text framed by the outline of a naked woman, which appears to be hand-drawn.
Jävligt ställt så jävligt framsnitt. Jag fick ju kolla bort liksom. De ställer för fan det uppe. I den du tar på en till exempel, där har de ju lagt i så man kan ha den inne. Och sen... vad ska jag säga? Jag tog kort på... Jag kan använda den.
Denied writing the letter or drawing the picture. This is not me. This is a fake thing. It's a fake Wall Street Journal story. He said, I never wrote a picture in my life. I don't draw pictures of women. He said, it's not my language. It's not my words. He told the Journal he was preparing to file a lawsuit if it published an article. I'm going to sue the Wall Street Journal just like I sued everyone else, he said. The Journal offered a full description
Allt sitter i sin livskarta för 2. Han min kollega. Han tryckte i sig den typ på 2 dagar. Och sen typ på en vecka så tog han 10 doser och så typ 10 eller 50 gram röka. Han var mosad upp av sin text. Det är bra typ. Kanske man blir, ja men jag menar att han kanske blir äcklad av det så att han inte vill fortsätta. Men han har inte stött mer nu. Han har sagt att jag ligger med sjukaste AP. Han är väldigt restriktiv.
Men jag kan inte få det.
Jag gjorde till på det. Jag lärde mig.
Enigmas never age. Have you noticed that?
Sen går det från Svedle...
Hon lyssnade på igenom nu.
Vad sa du?
Det var just Petra stod inne. Men...
Sen går det från Malmö med.
Ja, det kan det nog vara.
Till Tirava
Vad till alltså?
Donald Trump supplied this quote to the New York Times for a profile of Jeffrey Epstein. I've known Jeff for 15 years, terrific guy, he's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women.